Hey there, this is Three Heroes, One Chaff, bringing you the art of Warcry. We're all about growing and informing the community while having a fun, good time and enabling others to play their best Warcry. We're here tonight, very special night. It's a special treat. Not only is it our first episode, Adepticon, Prep-ticon, which we'll get to later, all four of us are here. What else could you want? And speaking of all four of us, I'm Robert Viscomi, the head chef for tonight.
Kyle Knapp.
Mike Sansom.
I'm Peter Mercenkavich.
Ooh,
And
we got
I think
there.
Yeah, that was tough. First episode, trying to get our names out there. Didn't think we were going to make it.
Yeah, we already
I
completed
studied
it,
for
guys.
that.
Pack it
Check
up.
my notes.
one. But let's go ahead and take it into every episode. We're going to do what we call family check-in, which we just talk about Warcry, hobby, or otherwise, and just kind of go in a circle. So, Rob, why don't we start with you?
You know, Peter, I think if anybody is going to do family check-in, it's 100% you. You're the most wholesome person here. I mean, I have the background of pie, but I need you to understand that you are the most kind-hearted person out of this group. The rest of us are just terrible humans. So, family check-in, man, it's just been work, some snow, finishing up Monster Killers, finishing up Ogre Tyrant, trying to figure out what I want to play for Adepticon in a panic, and then that's it, dude. I don't really have anything going on too much other than that. Everybody's good, family's good, house is good, dog's terrible. We're ready.
That's one way to get started with it. I want to keep mine very Warcry related because I got like three big things for Warcry. First, number one, hosting a tournament next month in the New Jersey area on February 10th at Red Seal Gaming. If anyone is interested, you can reach out to any of us in Discord. We could point you to the right people, the right place to sign up. On top of that, should be some Warcry news this week, actually, coming out from some of the other tournaments online in the area, and Death being my favorite faction. Really hoping we're going to get some good announcements going forward. And lastly, I'm trying Golden Demon this year, so a lot of prep going towards building my model, building my display, painting. Really nervous. Hope I could win. Don't expect to, but it's an experience.
Yeah, I'll go a little on both sides. It's speaking of cold, we've been sub-zero with like -30 wind chill here all week in Wisconsin. It's not been fun. So just been been trying to get some work in between, struggling to get my dog in and out, which it's been pretty rough. So but outside of that, doing actual Warcry stuff. I've been trying to crank out some terrain at the moment. I got so much terrain. I love it. Terrain's one of my favorite things, but I just build it and then I don't paint it. So it's just been sitting pure white and primed. So been working on the maw pit, getting that painted up, and lots of bone at the moment. So knocking it all out, having fun with it.
I'm really jealous.
Going with me, since I've got the jam picture on my screen, we'll figure that one out afterwards.
That's Peter's normal face.
It could be worse. You look nice.
It could be, yeah. It could be worse. As far as stuff working on, I'm one Zangor away from finishing my Zinch Warband, which will be so good to finally be done with because there's just way too many details and way too much trim. So I'll be glad to have that done. And besides that, it's actually just getting ready for that February 10th tournament at Red Seal. So I've got one more model to paint there, and then that'll be all done. And then other than that, it's just trying to find time to do up the logo for this. So yeah, that's what's been going on. Mike, let me back in. I'm going to jump out so my face stops.
Right. We'll test my editing skills. If this shows up, I haven't figured it out yet.
Ooh, the three
Yeah,
mode
that transition's
right here.
nice.
That transition was clean. We didn't even do it.
I'm liking it.
Let's kiss Kyle's cheeks.
Oh, wrong way. Oh, Papa. So that's terrible. So the one thing I want to touch base on, Kyle actually hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of stuff going on too, especially with the announcement of two new war bands. The February 10th that we will both be going to up in, or I think three of us are going there in Matawan, New Jersey, at Red Seal Gaming. you could definitely find us on Discord on that one. I love the aggressive plug, Kyle. That was really impressive for a family check-in. Nothing else says family like selling your stuff to everybody else. I love it. If it's a Soul Blight Gravelord war band, I'm probably gonna just go throw a chair through a window because that's garbage.
I mean, personally, I hope it's an OBR warband, but
yeah.
yeah.
I also kind of hope it is OBR warband, so all the people wanting Night Haunt also get upset because that's just a fun time. But I want it to be Night Haunt because they're such great models and they're such cool things, and like they need a little love
Playable
too.
Night Haunt?
No,
Look,
we
hey,
need
Peter,
it. We
you're
need it
out of
like
control
no,
now.
Peter.
No,
Yeah, dude.
we're not worried about being playable. Just more models.
Right. It might have like a hint of a clan rat in the back, like in the background that somebody is gonna like obsess over for 6 months, but you're never gonna see that get printed.
I want to have Night Haunt that live in a dumpster and they come out and that's where just their home. That's their terrain faction piece. Dumpster Night Haunt.
It just comes out like the smells out of a cartoon.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Look,
Yeah,
this is if we don't get this, I'm gonna be disappointed now.
Right, but I think James Workshop owes us a little compensation for this.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, trash haunt. Oh
it.
man, right. OBR would be cool too. I'd be really interested to see what they do to adapt that. But we can.
I just think bone constructs have such like a wide way they can go with it, right? Being Gur, bone monsters could fit really well, like a jaguar or some sort of like tigers that could be made of pure bone. Could be a mounted version of that, or some crazy like chimera-like bone hybrid. I just think there's so much cool space with bone constructs they haven't explored yet.
Incorrect. It's going to be a bone monkey to complete the rotted monkey, the
It's
full
true.
monkey,
True.
and now we will fully go pass into bone monkey, and everybody will be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's so cool! I love the bone monkey," and it's going to be like
Gotta return to
140
monkey.
points, unplayable. It's going to be great. Yeah, it'll
All
be
with the beast rune mark.
That's it.
right.
It gets a
Right.
second beast rune mark just for fun.
It just gets 2 beast rune
You
marks.
get a
Like, what's the
beast
second?
rune mark. You get a beast rune mark.
Oh no. Yeah, that's it though. I mean, that's great. I'm happy to hear everybody here is somewhat surviving. Winter finally decided to be winter after being spring for whatever months in New Jersey. So the one thing that is on the top of everybody's mind is Adepticon, right? Adepticon, Prep-ticon, and part of us coming together is we're all very, very competitive players. We're all involved in the TTS scene online for TTS leagues, playing around in all the tournaments that we can locally, some more than others. And I think that's awesome. And so what we want to do is kind of try to bring this information first to you if it's not already out there. And one big thing is I talked to the TO, send them some messages. So we do have some official drops for it. The mission pack's you're not going to know the exact missions until we get there, but it is a balanced blend of core and rumble pack. We know there's going to be no blessings, no monsters. We also know there's going to be the terrain is going to be ruins and fences, and that's it. That's pretty much it. So we're kind of returning back to an older style of life without blessings, which is kind of rough for me because now I'm just like, well, what do I do?
I've got these 20 points. I don't know what to do. I have to optimize my list building.
Right. I actually have to go to
again.
Horrible, right?
I mean, I will say though, like as much as I love the Gur trees, I collected all the Gur sets. I am looking forward to a tournament that I don't knock over half the tree in my sleeve. So,
yeah,
my goal is to knock over as much stuff. I'm gonna wear wizard sleeves and see what I can get. It's still and it's they usually use like the core box a ton, like the original starter set. So it should be a lot of like I mean, there's gonna be bell towers then, if it's core set stuff. So we should be in pretty good shape for having knockable scenery, which will be fun.
Right, those trees are actively trying to grab for my clothes. I'm convinced.
Yeah, it's not a good wintertime board.
I think the first in ACO when I met you, Kyle, I had split my thumb open on a can lid trying to find an ear pod that dropped in my recycling bin. Long story, didn't find it, slit my
I don't want to hear it.
This is how I met Peter and Kyle at the same time. And so my whole thumb was just gauzed the hell up when we were there. And when I finally we're trying to play and I'm trying to maneuver, I can't roll dice. I'm like rolling like cupped hand. But then every time I moved it, the trees would just catch on the cotton and I would just savage my side of the board. And it would just, I think my finger reopened like 4 times. It was horrible.
Look, I mean,
So
those trees smell blood. This is lore friendly. So I mean, just to me, just added narrative to the game. It makes
I
sense.
couldn't roll. I couldn't roll dice with my right hand. Everything fell off. All the superstition was just like, my soul was just crumpled, dude.
You were
Like,
playing corn, right?
no, I had a corn character in there. I was
No,
playing.
never mind.
No,
Never
my
mind.
bad.
No.
Oh, I was wrong. My bad. I didn't catch on. My bad, guys. Stupid me. My bad. So we want to start by helping everybody understand, how do you go about prepping for a tournament? How do you prep with the knowledge you got, right? This is a super vague tournament. There's the core rule book, which is 6, and I think the Rumble pack, which is another 6, I believe. Am I wrong on those? I think those numbers are right. I'm going to say I'm right anyway, right? I'm head chef. Shut up.
Yeah, it should be 6 and
And
6.
right, it should be 6 and 6. So there's 12 missions. There's a good split of treasure and treasure, kill, and objectives. Mostly objective heavy. Now we're not going to worry about that too much, because we want to know, like, oh man, so we don't have the information. How do you build a list when you don't know what you're doing? Well, that's where you have to build a take all comers list, right? Or you have to kind of abide by what we know to be kind of presently the best, or the presently like most present, I should say,
Yeah.
war bands. So I guess it's kind of like where we want to dive into, right? Like, we kind of want to just see, we're in second edition, we have limited information. So what do we do from now? Where do we go?
I mean, I'll just start with the death faction here, right? Because one of the top lists, mostly in the European scene. I'm not sure why it doesn't show up the U.S. We tend to like destruction over here, even though it's not my favorite faction. But Soulblade Gravelords, you're going to see it out of all the death factions. They are the most played, and they fit really well into both of these mission packs, right? If you have objective missions, you want bodies. Soulblight, bodies, 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 right? They have that horde style with Graveguard being one of the most points efficient chaff in the game. You've got skeletons or Deadwalker zombies at 40 points, both which can be resurrected at full health. Graveguard can't be resurrected at full health, but the point still remains, right? The more bodies I could put on the board and keep on the board makes objective missions that much easier for me to try to just kind of spike and win a little bit. They are a little slow, but with the sheer number of bodies on board, you're covering so much area anyway. It doesn't matter quite as much. They do suffer a little bit though when you look at some lists like we'll talk about later, like Karajan Overlords, you could just blow you off the board, or if someone brings like a kind of like a bigger model, like a tyrant, which could just kill 2 or 3 chaff in one turn. So you have to be okay with the fact that, like, hey, I'm probably not going to have a single big hitter, but I'm going to make up that fact with just sheer number of activations and sheer number of bodies.
They just
Right.
have so many tools.
Well,
You also
well, I was just going to say
everybody
quality
excited.
of models too. Quality of models too, because I mean, Graveguard point efficient models in the game,
Yeah.
and I mean, three Graveguard can mess up a much larger model very quick. You got models, but you also have spread damage throughout all those models.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
just not gonna have one guy go in there and wreck face, right? Like the phrase like quantity is a quality all of its own. It kind of applies here.
I don't
So
know what that is. Never heard of it.
so
Sorry,
like yeah,
done.
I don't have a tyrant, but I've got 3 Graveguard at 3 attacks each, 5 strength, 2, 4. I'm gonna be popping some damage on you, sheer number of dice in your face. But I mean, Death also has some other factions. Like I believe Mike, you want to talk about the Bone Reapers a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna hit the pause on this real quick. Is it true if you do play Soulblade Gravelords, they give you your honorary Jenko jeans and Hot Topic gift card because they're some of the most unbearable things to play against? I think it's really like the fact that, like you said, right? Like, all jokes aside, when like we're talking about these factions now for everybody, these are things you should expect to see, whether it's EU or NA. These are things that are tried and tested, right? So Kyle brought up all these crazy good points. And like the resurrection, right? We just throw Graveguard in your way, and then I'm going to pull him back up, or I'll pull back up some other things that we'll talk about for like Bladeborn stuff.
If you res the skeleton or the zombie, it's full health, right? So you're throwing 8 wounds or 10 wounds right back on the table.
Right. And it's like a pseudo net, right? Because you could res it right engaged and keep them right in place. And that's obnoxious. Don't do it. Don't play this. But it's good. Play it.
I'm definitely gonna be experimenting with this in my my list building for sure. I just like having the sheer number of models on the board, especially with the way major and minor wins work. So
yeah, that's a good point. And I definitely want to dive into major minor with future, I guess, content and stuff like that. I really want to go into like when you're building lists. That's a really cool idea. Peter brought it up too this week, and so did you. Made great points like, hey, my weakness is minor wins. And if you're in a big tournament, you have to think if they're going by minor major wins, you have to think, what can I do to minimize that? And resing them up, bringing back, making sure more than half your war bands on the table is kind of wildly awesome.
It won't work for Soulblight though, because if they've been rezzed at the end of round 4, they do count as taken down. So, and I guess talking about it, we should probably define it, right? So we're probably going to play the regular core book rules. So yeah, like you said, half the winning player's warband is taken down. It does count as a minor instead of a major victory. So yeah, I mean, it might be nice to just keep bringing the same guy back over and over again and let that same model keep dying over and over again, because you're kind of saving your other models in that capacity, right? So that you can limit the amount of like point leech essentially that and I think it's just models, right? It's half the models, not the points. So it's not like 500 points worth of models. It's just if say I bring in 11. Yeah, if I bring in 11 model
which is why numbers matter, right? Like if I have a 6-man warband, killing 3 is a lot different than if I have 12 and you have to kill 6. So it's a lot more to consider for sure.
Yeah. And they just have such a like an embarrassing number of like phenomenal abilities and things like that. Their tricks are just like, they have the biggest bag of tricks in the entire game. I think they can, like, their reaction is fantastic. Just would like to, slow down. If you're not attacking with something that's going to blow them up, they're just going to live probably, because they can just reduce the amount of damage that's incoming to them. They've got that double for a skeleton to move 6, even though it's only move 3 for some reason. That makes me mad every single time it happens. Just shuffling real quick across the board.
It's a shambling horde, equal to the dice value, which is it's kind of sick, because even if they're holding a treasure, right, it's equal to the dice value.
Off he goes.
To their move. So, down 6 inches.
Tucks it in the rib cage and he's off.
Oh my god.
A lot of options, and it's one of the reasons I actually like Soulblight so much. Is I love it, like having that bag of tricks, right? A little bit more complicated because of that, because you're going to have 4, 5, 6, 7 abilities you might use at any given time. Doesn't make them dice hungry though, right? Like those abilities are great, but they're not always required. They're just a really big accentuating fact to Soulblight, and I fully expect to see quite a few people bring Soulblight this time around.
And most of those abilities that you're talking about, you can sprinkle them where you need them, when you need them to, which is, it's not, there's a handful of ones that are kind of more specific to, individualized models. Like obviously the resurrection is only on the heroes and stuff like that. But so many of them can do so much of the stuff. So it's like, well, this guy's in a fight right now, so let's, dump the dice into that one. Or, this guy needs to get to a point, so let's shambling horde across the board. And it's unreal, the utility.
I mean, like, I don't even build around quads because, I think building around quads is like too risky. But, just look at like a Necromancer and Graveguard together. Van Hell's Dance, Macabre, like 4 of your Graveguard can start smacking people in the face on a quad. That's crazy, right? Talk about giving multiple attacks to a already good and efficient unit. It's just game changing if it can happen.
Hearing you talk about that, I'm feeling sick.
All right, I'm done with this. Go next. Done with this. Go next. They're good. You're going to see them prepare how to deal with hordes.
So another one we got, we're looking at OBR. They are, I think, one of like the sneakiest picks. They're not showing up in a ton of tournaments, but they're very clearly good. And I think tournament locally, I've seen these guys, like we had ran a league and I think 3 different people were playing them all at the same time. So like your mileage may vary, but they're clearly really, really good. I think for this pack in particular too, they've got a lot of really interesting stuff. So we got I think there's two chaff that are decent, but the one that most people take is the five toughness guy. He's got a range of 2, it's critting on 5s. Like, all right, sorry, it's critting for 5 damage, 2 dice. Like, it just rips a hole in anything for a 55-point model. It's gross. 10 wounds. It's only got the 3 movement. So oftentimes you want to bring something to kind of shuffle them around. That's one of the weaknesses for the chaff, is that they can't really get where they need to go without some help, other than just taking 3 rounds to get there. So, which sometimes you don't need to do anymore, right?
I will say they do
But
have
they're
help
just
though. Like they have one of the best
Yeah.
movement abilities in the game, which
Yeah.
are hero triple. That is an
Yep.
unlimited range just after their move, right?
Yeah.
Triple
Super
six.
wog.
Anyone
Yeah.
in that group gets to move an additional 3. Like
Right.
it's crazy,
It's
right? So
And when you combo that off with like the stalkers, right? The stalkers have the charge ability, so they got on a double, they're moving. They get a free move basically. And if you've combined, if you've got a triple and a double in that round, you have your leader pop the triple, or right, yeah, triple for that one. The leader pops the triple, so he adds up to like 6 to the value, and then you use your charge, so you've got a stalker that's just ripping 11 inches, and then he attacks twice. Like it's wild what combos those things can do. But
and
yeah.
if you don't want that triple either, right? Like you have another move with the Morghast, like a
Mhm.
flying 8-inch model on a triple just to get a free move. Like that's pretty crazy. Like it's got a 8 plus 2-inch because of its spear. It's a 10-inch threat range anywhere on the board. Absolutely nuts.
Yeah, just and to be able to double attack, right? Like otherwise, if you need to, you could move and get into that charge range, and obviously with the is it the triple is for a full move action, right? It's not charge; it doesn't have to
Yep,
go towards
it's full
something.
move
Yeah, so you
anywhere you
get
want to go.
Free move.
16 inches clean off a chaff from the objective on the other side of the board.
Well,
Like,
that's what's interesting too, is their hitting pieces are not slow by any means.
No.
I mean, 5 and then 8, you can make up a lot of board really quick and then still punch hard for that point cost. I mean, it's shocking to me that you don't see more of this at tournaments.
I do kind of wonder if the reason you don't see more of them is because they're really good in AOS right now, so all of the boxes are gone. Like if you want to go buy stalkers right now, get ready to drop like $120 or something stupid on eBay, because until they get reprinted right now, it's gonna be tight.
So Games Workshop has this sick joke of making skeletons way faster than they should be. Like it's with the Shambling Horde, and now we have pay a triple, fly 8, touch something, go take a nap, fly across the other board. Like whatever, dude. It's insane. But one of their weaknesses is, although they're a little bit more, they're very they have a lot of velocity and they get to where they need to quickly. They have a lot of things that can blend. They're a little bit more bashier than most death factions. However, and we saw it in a league game, seeing them fly into something that wants to brawl a lot more, like Stormcast, like ogres, Iron Jaws, they're going to bounce off.
The
And
big
although
chaos guys, right?
yeah,
they're losing a fight against a Myrmidon or a FOMO like every single time.
right. So they're like bash light. So they're more bashy, but they can get there quick. I think they have a really well-rounded approach. They have some good durability. They have some flexibility. They should be played more. I think it's probably tough to see them being inserted if you don't know the mission pack, because you want to build, am I building for heavy objective, which is spamming Mortec guard, or am I going into a more threatening package with like 2 stalkers and a harbinger, or an ally, a stalker and a harbinger? They're definitely interesting now and I really think they're a really cool take on how to play a death faction. There's no reses here. So it's unlike Soulblight, you're not getting a res, but you're making up for it with more combat stats and more efficiency like that.
And that's where I think
you
like we
can
don't see it as much either, right? Because like you got skeletons here and you got skeletons in Soulblight. So like sometimes if you're just talking from like a pure aesthetic reason, there's not like a huge difference between those two. But having access to that res it's kind of bonkers, right? That's why like we've seen lists with this that bring in some Night Haunt to try to make up that difference and have that resurrection. Like the Briar Queen is a great choice, or with blessings like Wielder of the Blade is an excellent choice to bring in and kind of make them a much tankier and beefier Soul Blight. They're also just have a lot less tools, right? Like you talked about, like their weaknesses. They have a pretty good double in terms of like Nadrite blades to add 1 to their damage, which is really nice. But you still have to hit, right? So that's not very good for the spears, which are 2 attacks and strength 3 goes to 2/6. Sounds good on paper, but do I want to use a double on that? So you'll be using that double mostly for movement. And once you're in combat and locked, then what, right? It doesn't have as much impact as using something like that resurrection ability who, I could throw someone into combat with Shambling Horde, attack, it dies, and I res it all in the same turn. Just less utility. So maybe that straightforward approach is also one of the reasons you're not seeing as many of them.
It's not a bad take on it. All right, next. OBR, they're good. Enjoy them.
Rob's like, what? Death? Why do we have to talk about death?
Nah, man, death is cool. I think
Because you're internal. That's what it
you
is.
you need to respect it, right? Like seeing either of those factions, like especially Soulblight, you need to have a game plan and the flexibility and list building of everything. Like you need it, right? Like you need to know how to deal with what they're going to do and anticipate. It becomes more of a game of chess than it becomes a game of like, well, unless you can play, I have a tyrant, I'm going to clean off 3 models in a turn. Then I can start getting a tempo advantage on it.
Yeah.
Like that's where we can go. Or if you have a flame hurler and you just laugh at it and you just burn everything to the ground, sure.
But
for
Kyle said to KO, okay, just keep walking at me. That's fine. Bring your move 3, and I will just continue to shoot until there's nothing left to shoot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for letting me.
Okay, it's still away from me.
Yeah, it's not without its flaws. They're definitely not great on straight brawl missions.
Mm-hmm.
But they can with clever play, like clever cheeky play. They can just like pit you down and they slowly suffocate and strangle you. So it's cool. Them and OBR are both cool.
Don't overestimate the wait action just to sit there and do nothing, because I could do it more times than you can. It's one of the benefits of playing Horde, right?
It's a weird flex, Kyle, but yeah, I can sit here and do nothing more than you can.
I paid to go to a tournament to sit here and stare at you and do nothing. That's basically what I'm saying.
Got my acrylic weight tokens ready just so I can flex up.
I did actually get new tokens, so I'm ready.
Yeah, I bet. Enjoy. Next, go to the Bladeborn.
Well, that's the thing too, going into especially the Bladeborn too, but there's a lot of like gotcha moments with death because you don't expect the skeleton to shamble way faster than it has any right to, right? Or the stalker suddenly goes like, yeah, I'm gonna move 11 inches and strike you twice, and you're like, excuse me, like what
I'd prefer if you didn't.
I would prefer not. But that's another big thing Death has up their sleeve is they have a lot of really solid Bladeborn to bring in.
Oh, it's obnoxiously good. It's so, and they're really all cool. The flavor's all there too.
Yeah, because I mean, like everybody thinks Sons of Elmorn because that they haven't FAQ'd it yet, and you can bring Graveguard back at full health. And
even without that though, they're still good, right? Even if they FAQ it, that they're only getting whatever the value of the dice back on that res is, they're still amazing. That double that the brothers have just can really crank out
Civic Rivalry just to add 2 to your attacks is just kind of nuts. Like a Graveguard getting onslaught +1 is just crazy.
Right, just because his brother attacked, you get one.
Right. I mean, I could talk about these guys all day because I love playing with them, right? Like even like looking at like Dientelos, he's got a spell, like a magic spell attack, which all right, fine, whatever, 2 attacks, but instead of strength 3, it's strength 6, right? Like
he's the best wizard in the game for that, right? He's always
wizard. Yeah, he could resurrect people. He could smack people for 3 fixed damage, 7 inches away, probably hitting on 3s against everything besides Stormcast, and res something all in the same turn. Like that's a lot of utility in a single model. And that's not even talk about like Duval. If something's injured, just adding 2 attacks and 2 strength to your attacks, 4/4/2/6 to 6/6/2/6. It's a night and day difference on what that can do. So, to you guys' point, like
that's why I think
so many tricks up their sleeve.
Well, Crimson Core has a lot of play too that I don't think a lot of people realize. Just because that double, being able to soften something up, they become really good at finishing off pieces. And again, you look at their attack profiles and you're like, it's all right. I can. It's getting 2 more dice and 2+ strength. What you gonna do now?
Yeah, I think Blessings really opened up Gorath and really opened up Duval and all them. Like especially Gorath being like, well, I'm gonna run 5, reach out 2. I'm gonna swing, with a blessing and the double. I'm gonna swing. What is it? 5. I'm gonna be 5/6/3/6. That's pretty for 155 points with that blessing. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good value.
Which,
like,
but
also,
speaking of Adepticon, though, we probably won't see him because
No.
it's not any of the 2 attack profiles, right? Like Kyle mentioned, the wielder of the blade, and then what is it, the Lord Executioner? That one's based on Gorath. Probably not coming, just because you really don't want those 2 attack profiles to just be vanilla.
Right. The no blessings really drastically change. So, like, for what
Mhm.
we're expecting for Adepticon specifically, I wouldn't anticipate it. Although, people pick up that starter box. It's not out of the norm
Yeah.
to see people just having fun. And then you're like, sick, 2-tack Gorath. Like, it'll go up to 4. Keep your distance. It's okay. But let's really appreciate D'Angelos looking like some dude out of Hey Arnold, like trying to lure kids away. I'm not really high on the aesthetic for them, but I think,
Oh, I love it. Vampire combined
Rob's
with
not high on
Frankenstein.
that at all, anyway.
It's so cool.
Sorry, go ahead, go.
So don't even get me started on crackling arcs, like the whole electric like combo that they can do. Just like I have a horde of zombies that want to stick together as a horde. Like there's not a lot of units in the game that benefit from castling like that. So for Death, who wants to be a horde, to have a group that benefits from castling, like it just really cool flavor.
Pete, what do you think about that? What's your take on crackling arcs?
Well, I actually was introduced to Crackling Arcs the last tournament we did in November, and it almost cost me because I did not expect a group of zombies to come in and be like, yeah, 16 damage. Take that.
Right, burn damage, no joke.
Yeah, for those watching, by the way, Crackling Arcs, if you don't know what it does, it's a double. You roll dice equal to the value of the double. For each 5+, you deal damage to target within 3 inches of a zombie that's got the frenzy rune mark. So if you have 4 zombies within 3 inches of a target, every 5 up would deal 4 damage. So theoretically, if you rolled 6 dice with 4 zombies in range, you could do up to 24 damage on a double. And it's an ability, right? So you could double move 8 inches with all those zombies, 3 more inches away, pop a target just for insane amounts of damage, ignoring armor.
Yeah, and obviously
about,
the key there, you got to keep them
too.
grouped, right? That's the big thing, is they have to be grouped together. And as soon as you start picking them apart, unless you're resing them right back together, you can break it apart. But the fact that it's a double, it makes a group that you would not think is a problem suddenly be like, oh no, I need to deal with this because this could hurt.
The other issue too is like the unfeeling flesh, right? Like, so even though they're there, they have 10 wounds, 3 toughness, like whatever, I'm going to crumple them on 3s. All of a sudden, your 2-4, 2-5 profiles 1-4, 1-5. So you're not critting. You're not.
Do they drop they don't drop the crit damage, right?
Not
it's
crit.
Just
no, it'll just be
normal
So
hit,
if it's 2-4, it's 1-4, and that's it's enough for them to survive. And all they have to do is go, wait, double. Sure, you have to roll the dice. Sorry, Pete, I cut you off. That was rude of me.
No, you're good.
That's enough, Pete. We're done. Next slide.
All right, I'm working on Rob jumping off of your creepy Hey Arnold interpretation of this. I've been the only time I think I'll play. Don't hold me to this. The only time I think I'll play Soul Blight is I've been working on a D'Angelos list where he is essentially a pimp and he has all of his zombies are his folks of the night. So I'm gonna put lipstick on all the zombies and have him. He's putting the romance back in necromancy.
That's a stretch. That's headcanon now, but I mean,
I do like it. I hope you keep out some serious like fuzz on the edges of his clothing.
Oh, he's gonna have a chalice and a cane. It's gonna be
some
great.
fuzzy dice hanging from his staff. I like it.
Oh my god.
Any other stuff? I mean, yeah, like you said, people Velmorn popping in and out. They're good. They're hard to find, which might limit if you see them or not.
You don't have to have Velmorn to res the Velmorn boys at full. Anything that could res them at full because they dodge that. So be weary on that, because we were talking. Pete, was it you that said it's like a lot of gotcha hammer sometimes, right? It pretty much can feel real bad if you're just rolling up your first tournament. Oh, I'm going to Adepticon. I'm going to play with my 1-box Iron Golems. Sick. Cool. It's a good 1-box, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, I just killed that. I'm doing great. And then they return it to full. Well, current res, the way it works is anything like the elite rune mark minions, like the Grave Guard, will come back to value the dice, right? Or like a Night Haunt res, value the dice. However, resurrecting the Velmorn boys is too full. And same thing with the The zombies aren't elite. They're going to come back at full too. So not only do they have really good point upgrades for their standard fighters that are already cost efficient, they just break the rules. So
yeah, you get a triple for basically
Yeah.
a full redeploy, a whole whatever, how many points, 70, 80 points that you're just chucking back on the board wherever you feel like when you've placed that leader there, which is incredibly powerful.
So be careful. Don't get caught by that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Good. We done? Are we done deathing? Are we sick of it yet?
I
Peter,
mean, we're pretty much done. Like
Rob's like,
Nighthawk,
I'm
you're
so
not going
done.
to see.
So done.
Like we're not going to see
that
Nighthawk.
was
Unfortunately,
rhetoric. Nobody asked. That was rhetoric.
Like you mentioned
I
Nighthawk
hope
earlier.
somebody
Like,
brings
we're not going to
Nighthawk.
see them, right, in terms of death, because they're
Mhm.
too weak. They just,
Unless-
besides the res ability, you're not going to see it, except maybe as one ally. You might see some Flesh Eater courts. I wouldn't be surprised. Like Chosen of the King combo. It's
Mhm.
well known. It's been around. Those cheap ghouls can get around the board. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some of that being thrown around in there.
Vargolf's
Or,
still sick.
Yeah, the new Vargolf model that just came out, people are raving about. I got a box myself right behind me. It's awesome, right? I could see those being played just because the models are new. And the Royal Beast players are actually very popular. So I wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised to see them either. They also play that horde play style. So in reality, if you're going to see death, odds are you're going to see a lot of models on the board, and they're not going to be very elite.
Yep. For sure. And then if we get this, as of right now, this Friday is when LVO is supposed to be releasing whatever the new Warcry box is, or announcing it. Hope ideally, right? So we could end up seeing there's supposed to be a death faction in there. So you might see that if people are not messing around and get it painted up and stuff like that. Whatever that is, you might end up running into it. If it's Nighthawk, you're going to see it, almost guaranteed. It's almost 100% chance somebody's going to be playing it.
The chat's going to
It's
be.
going to be Kyle.
It's gonna be
I did bring what is it, the Soul Sworn to my first competitive event like 2 weeks after they were released, and wasn't a good choice for the mission pack, which we'll discuss in future podcasts. But
you get props,
yeah.
So man, 2-week turnaround for a warband that just dropped. I mean, that's pretty. Ooh, spiked.
Airbrush is king. What can I say?
I'm shifting it. Let's go. Next one. Get into the good stuff. Finally, the real factions. Just kidding, Kyle. I'm sorry.
It's cool. I'll take it.
Yeah. So this one, we're looking at this right now. We got a couple on the screen. One, keep in mind, no monsters. So that Chimera, toss it right off. Anybody playing Chimera, jog off to begin with. It's irresponsible. It's immature. It's not Warcry. Please stop.
No. Go ahead and bring the list, but you're going to be playing it.
Sign it up.
Points.
Sign it up.
Yeah.
Sign it up so you could lose.
You're going to be missing half your list once you show up and start trying to drop them on the board.
Right. Watch me accidentally maybe fall on top of it. I don't know. Look, so no monsters. Otherwise, you would see the top ranking would be Nurgle demons. And that would be what you see the plague bearers, the PBs being 3, 4, 10. Like the reaction keeps them alive. They're really tough. They're just super point efficient. So they're going to load up on them and then jam a Chimera. I don't want to spend too much time on them. And you just wait around the board and then Chimera Dragon Mauls and smacks things with 1,000,000 dice for 1,000,000 damage.
They're still good though, right? Like just because
they're still good by themselves, right?
You could sub in for that Chimera, just chuck a Vanguard and Fomor or Myrmidon, whatever you want to do. They got great bodies. They got some movement. The Slobody can start shift them around and stuff like that. They live, like you said.
Right.
I think they're less likely without the Chimera to come. They won last year. That was what Dan Salty Seas list was last year, was Nurgle Chimera. So I don't think that it's I think they're less likely, but they're still a faction that could for sure do really well in a combination of the Rumble Pack, where you can bring in your hitty allies, and then you've still got good shaft to deal with.
Well, here's the thing too: is Nurgle demons are classic for you bring a lot of plague bearers because they stick around, they crit like a champ.
Mm-hmm.
That 1/4 is shockingly good.
Right.
And then you sub in your 2 favorite Titan pieces: Myrmidon, Fomoroid Crusher, Varangard, Lord of Afflictions. I mean, Chaos has a lot of options to bring in those 2, and they can do that because all their other pieces are so cheap. So you can have a lot of bodies while still having 2 major heavy hitters on the board. And it's a classic.
Water Priest too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Get some pull somebody into your pile of plague bearers and then just watch them get eviscerated. It would be fun.
Right, for sure. And if you look on the left side underneath this, things you will see 100% Adepticon, Ogroid, Myrmidon, Crusher, Spheranx. These were like the original three. Came out late 1.0. Am I correct on that?
They kind of got
Um,
mixed.
they
They
kind of
got
got
mixed
mixed,
too, you
right?
know.
But you're seeing like a lot of these options are Titan pieces that are fast, durable, high health. They have great damage, great reach, great flexibility, great utility on the Spheranx. These things you have to respect on the table. And when you are planning for Adepticon, you have to prep. How are you going to handle one of these? If you're Soulblight, maybe you just keep resing a poopy model right in front of it and it gets stuck over and over again. And then you
I
just
found the
laugh.
skeleton.
Right. Yeah. I enjoy this for the third time today. And then,
It's
you
like
just,
that. Why don't you go send the skeleton over there? Go practice falling down. I'll be there in a minute. Right? Just keep
right,
racking it
right.
over and over again.
While you see a triple on my side, you know what's happening. So so keep in mind these are fantastic and they could go into any faction in chaos.
And
Any
that's one of the
faction.
things I love about them, by the way, right? Because if you need something that just wants to punch something in the face, right? Full Morrid Crusher hits like a truck with that 5 move. I prefer the Myrmidon for the extra 1 inch on the
Reach.
range.
Same.
It's one less strength, but that 1 extra inch means that he can't get bogged up by those skeletons quite as easily, right? Because he
Mhm.
doesn't need to actually engage them to hit them. But I think I don't play a ton of chaos, so don't quote me on this, but I think the Mind Stealer Spheranx is underplayed in my opinion. Like partnering that with like the Horns of Hash shit, which has cool stuff like the flamethrower to give that control piece could really mess up another faction that does bring something like a Myrmidon when the Spheranx just looks at it and says, guess what? You can't move, but I'm still going to run around my 4-5-2-5 profile and smack people in the face.
When it's got the quad that just shuts it down. It says no on a quad you don't activate this round.
It's
Like you literally
quad
do
shuts
not
it
exist.
down, and I think is it a double or triple? We'll just lock it in place, but it could still activate.
The
Right.
triple I think is the net that it
The
Yeah,
has.
triple's the net, the quad
Yep.
is that. And although it lacks the 4-8 damage profile, it's got 8-inch move on 30 wounds with like a
Mhm.
pretty small but oval base. Not small, but it's an oval, like an oblong base.
Like yeah,
So
it's either 75 or
it
90. I
gets
can't
there.
remember.
It can awkwardly block things out. It's not bad. It's dice hungry. So you kind of got to play around and respect it and have a plan for it. But the all stars on this slide to me, now that Chimera is gone, and yet again, keep in mind these can go into any faction for chaos we discuss. Uh, the chaff of Horns of a Shatters, 55 points for the humble farmer with 2-inch range, 3-3, 1-4, 4-3-10. Like they are wildly good. You're gonna look at them and be like, whatever, it's got 10, 3 toughness. They get around, they don't have to engage you. They can throw some dice to crit. 3 dice at 2-inch on 55 is fantastic. But even more, the real nightmare of this warband is the flame hurler, right? It's the magical bagpipe flamethrower that doesn't hit its own units. It's only 6 inches, but on a triple, it could dark artifice, and then it just rolls a bucket of dice and does splash AOE damage. So we're talking about, hey, how do I make a plan for Soulblight? Bring some flamethrowers. Who
Mhm.
knew?
I
And
mean,
honestly,
it's
there
not
are
just
just,
Soulblight though, right? Because like even Stormcast, right?
oh
Because that
god,
triples
yeah,
an ability, it
it's
ignores
burn
armor.
damage.
Any
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
ability
burn
that
damage.
ignores armor is going to mess somebody
Toughness.
up.
Even
Right.
even looking to go against the FOMO and the Myrmidon, right? Like that's one of their weaknesses is that they don't survive crits like everything else in the game, right? Just because they got that tough 6, they're still
Right.
getting mowed when you start rolling crits or on those ability dice. So it's a great way to just auto get damage through basically.
Also, the six range, no minimum range, firing 3 dice on 5 strength. Who cares about the strength? Crit fishing 1-5.
Mhm.
That's absurd. So you can move, shoot, dark artifice, and then just burn everything around. Like it's wild for 125. And
Mhm.
everyone like you could pack 2 of them and then throw in a Myrmidon or a Crusher with a bunch of shatters.
I mean, I would also underestimate the leader that you bring with them does have the orb that does explode to reduce toughness, which just
Mhm.
makes your shatterers that much better too, right?
And
Yes,
strength, right?
And
It's
strength, yeah.
yeah, it makes
So
it
it,
easier
it
to kill
protects
them and
you and
harder
makes it
to
easier to
defend.
hurt somebody else. Like
Yeah.
it just amplifies your team. You're not going to use it probably as often as you're going to use the flame earlier, but in a situation where you're trying to sit on a point, and stay alive, like it's pretty big, right? Turning strength 4 into strength 3 means they're hitting on 4s, or vice versa. If they're toughness 4 and you put them down to 3, your guys are hitting way more now, way harder.
And if you're like, thinking about like playing the missions in the core book, if you're on something like Hidden Vault, where you're going to end up around one objective
Oh
at the
my
end.
God.
Okay, guess what?
Yeah.
Round 3 and 4, when there's only one objective, guess what? There's only one place we're fighting, and I've really, nullified a lot of your output and made it easier for me to get through. So yeah, it can be in a pack like this. I think it can for sure get pretty filthy with, it's a neat ability. It's it's one of those that's harder sometimes to justify, especially given the context of it. But when you have to bring that model to play horns, it's a great utility piece.
Yeah, for attacks, you could do a lot worse, to be honest. I mean, like, I
Unmade
freaking
comes to
models, but
Bargain bin.
Flame Hurlers, I despise that model. It is the most hated model in this game is the Flame Hurler, because it is just bonkers what they do with a triple.
So good.
I
think it's one of the,
especially when you pair up a couple of them.
It's one of the few things I've seen kind of like your face while watching you get flame hurlered, and just the face of disgust off you is just like, you have to take a deep breath in. Right, dude, it's wild.
And my soul sword did not appreciate 15 damage off of one of those on turn 1. I had 6 models on the board and it's dead. T5. Oh well.
Thank you, sir. I have another.
I like having engaging, interacting gameplay. Oh, burn me down, sure. Like it's
one of the weaknesses for him for sure. That hurler is a target. As long as if you ever see, obviously it sounds like any of you guys. I haven't actually played against one, but yeah, I know what they do. So if I see one on the board, I'm going to be taking whatever speed piece I have, and it's only got 12 wounds. The tough 4 is decent, but most of the time the thing that I'm shooting across the board is probably going to be hitting enough to get through it. So like a Varangard eliminates it right away, right? It's such a high priority target for most warbands when they see it on the other side. So figuring out, obviously, screen it and stuff like that. But that's one weakness, because if that thing goes down before you really get a chance to do anything with it, you just lost 125 points out of your list for functionally nothing. So
I would also argue one of the weaknesses is that flamethrower triple is reliant on the value of that triple. So triple ones, it doesn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
And you're even taking a risk on triple 3s because you still have to get, I believe it's 5 ups to actually do the damage. So if you're only rolling 4 ups, so 50% chance on each roll. So if you had 2s, you have you're deal 3. You have 3 dice, you might deal 6 damage, right? That doesn't seem very good for a triple. So that means you're often going to be taking like a double 6 and pushing it to a triple 6, meaning that it's going to eat your dice just so you can actually get a good shot off of it.
Yeah, it telegraphs it, right? When you pick the dice, it telegraphs it. But while it may not be good off a lower power or mid-tier value of a triple, it still splash damages. So that triple, you're still getting good value if it's hitting and splashing 1 or 2 targets. But it is significantly lower if they're rolling low triples, kind of like Calthea triple, which we'll get to later. But all right, we've hovered on this too much. Everybody hates flame hurlers. They're great. Play them. Next.
One of the real quick, just a weakness for the Nurgle guys too. It's just that it's similar to Soulblight, right? They're slow. You gotta. It's gonna take them a while, and you really have to commit if you want to get them to move in any significant way. Slavity's got the great ability, that double, to help it out, but again, that's not an instant thing. That's an aura. So Slavity goes down, all of a sudden that goes away, and it's just that's probably their biggest one, is you can outmaneuver them relatively easily with some pretty meticulous intent. You can outposition them.
All correct. Oh, look at that. We're on.
Was there any other chaos we wanted to talk about?
I think we don't have the image for it, but Varangard. I might have put it on a different side. Varangard typically are going to run 10. They have 6 toughness, 30 wounds on a double, half the value. They get to pretty much double attack anyway. Have a plan for something that is going to speed dragon, anvil into you, and kill something, most likely. Yeah. If they don't kill something, then they just spent 295 points to park something there and get murdered. Yes, this 6 toughness absolutely helps. But with the power of Grayskull and Friendship, you just roll 6s and they go away. So you don't have to really worry about it.
All you got to do is just crit, baby. That's all you got.
If you just roll 6s, the game's really easy. I
I
don't know
still think
about
you'll
you guys.
see some other chaos factions too, just because a lot of people like chaos, just because the aesthetic is really,
Mhm.
really good for them in a lot of different bands.
Yeah, you're gonna see
Um,
slaves for
you're gonna see
sure.
slaves for sure. You're gonna probably see a couple Skaven players for sure.
Mhm.
Skaven fans are total fanatics, uh, not to underestimate them. I
Bad
also wouldn't be
taste.
surprised to see someone run something like a Splintered Fang leader,
The
the True
leader.
Blood,
Yeah.
because their net
Mhm.
is guaranteed. Or like
Double.
Iron Golems, just because they're one of the original boxes. Or
Mhm.
my secret slide in is I really think you're going to see some Rotmire Creed. I could see that
Oh,
coming out with
ooh,
their
heat,
yeah.
Spicy pick.
heat.
I mean, with the
Almost
nets that they
all of
have on a
them.
double that deals damage, lethal injection, like they got some cool tools. They're
Mhm.
just overshadowed by the horns and back again.
And jumping on your Iron Golems kind of expectation too. Untamed Beasts are at almost every tournament. There's almost always one person that's playing them just because they're OG, they look great, and like, oh sure, yeah, I'll sign up for a Warcry tournament. What's that, Pete?
They play good too. I mean, I
Yeah.
love playing on Tame Beasts. I mean,
Mhm.
they
Yeah,
do have play. I mean, I think they're
ton of
often
tools.
underplayed. You have a lot of tools. Yeah, now, and to your point, Mike, it is funny. It seems like you always can count on a non-team beast showing up at a tournament.
Yeah,
There's always one.
100%. And they can outmaneuver and do some stuff to you. You gotta give them respect. You
Mhm.
gotta fear the underdog a little bit. Don't sit there and be like, "Ooh, nice one box on Team Beasts." Like, right? Like,
They got,
I mean,
they
like
got the
I
pole.
showed,
They got the planes running too
yeah,
fast. Like they got some speedy
planeswalkers.
chaff.
Yeah, their heart
That's what
eater
I said.
is a blender. Like, you gotta respect it.
Mhm.
I
Yep,
mean, those
for
guys are
sure.
almost scarier when someone brings an underdog like that because it probably means they know how to play them, right? So that's never roll up and be like,
There's,
"Oh, this is going to be my buy round." Now you're going to roll up and be like,
yeah.
"This is going to be the hardest time I've ever fought the Untamed Beast in my life."
If
Like
you
these guys
if
can play them
if you
religiously.
get set if you sit across from Chris Hyde and he's playing Untamed Beast, I think he wanted to bring a different warband. But if you're playing him on Untamed Beast, be prepared for an absolute scrap. No matter how good you think your matchup is, he is absolutely masterful with Untamed Beast because he's played him so many times. And yeah, it's it should be much easier than it is, even if you're playing like a top tier warband, but it won't be.
No, that's awesome.
Any other chaos pals we're thinking?
I think we're ready
Chaos
for some
pals.
order.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll jump in here. So, Thunderstrike. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that Dominion box. I think they're still available if you want to get your hands on one. I think if you're lucky, you might even be able to find a deal on it if you want to get a few little Stormcasting boys. Yeah, they're obviously pretty ubiquitous for the same reasons that Untamed Beasts and Iron Golems are. It's just they're in a box that a lot of people bought, so a lot of people bring them. Turns out they're also pretty decent. So they've got obviously the Annihilators are all great. They're going to be wanting to use a lot of like action cheating and things like that. So they're going to be getting extra actions throughout the game from different models. We'll go through it over, like Rob said, we'll go over Calthea later, but they just hit like trucks. They got an ability that, they can, once they've taken half their damage, that's basically just a bunch free attack action, I think, on a double.
Yeah.
Crazy, they got and it's hard to get through them. Most of the time you're having to crit to get through them. And they often win kind of battles of attrition versus anything that's not like a FOMO or that's able to hit them pretty hard and pretty high. The Vindictors, another one that's just crazy high toughness. So for all these guys, their weakness is just, well, if you chuck them into a pile of chaff, if they get crit, they're in trouble, right? If your opponent is rolling hot, you're in deep trouble because your wounds are going to disappear. You've paid all of these points for the toughness that's not doing anything for you.
They definitely have two other weaknesses, right? Like one, they're slow, like just like zombies, so they move 3,
Yep.
and they don't have anywhere near as much movement buffs as Death does built into faction, right? There's plenty of allies you could bring in that could spike some move, like Flame Seekers throwing some whips, Calthea giving free moves, Kixie giving +1 move. But one of the other things I also want to bring up here too, right? Like we talked about the benefits of having a lot of models. These guys do hit like a truck, but they're paying the cost. You're often not going to see lists of these guys go to 7, maybe 8. So they're going to struggle on objective missions because you don't have a ton of models and you're slow at the same time, right? So the positioning is going to be really key with these guys. If you don't have a FOMO to kill them, well, maybe you just try to push them out of position and win by just board position, right? And that's
Mhm.
the objective you're going to fight for.
And I think that's
Well,
just the hard part too, because sometimes they can outpace you on that positioning because of the activation cheating. So
Yeah.
it's like when you're at a job interview, tell us about your biggest weakness. Here's one of my strengths. Is that what you were looking for?
What's up, Pete?
Well, I was thinking too. I mean, a lot of people are. I mean, you can like we talk about Untamed Beast at tournaments. Something you're going to always see at tournaments is Stormcast.
Yeah.
At least one, if not a
It's the
couple.
rules.
And
It's just
there's
how
a
it works.
reason for it.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's for sure.
But something to keep in mind too is like you see a lot of people getting creative, and suddenly you got the Bladeborn pull-ins to try to buff up that model count. Now, to Kyle's point there, it doesn't solve the fact that they're slow.
Yeah.
Like you got a couple of ways to kind of gimmick your way. Losing Swift as the Wind now, that's gone. That was a big way a lot of guys were trying to launch them like catapults, right? And you still have Calthea and a couple other ways of doing it. But the fact is, if you don't have those abilities, they're pretty easy to avoid.
Mhm.
So there's definitely ways to minimize that. And we've seen plenty of guys pull it off very well, especially you throw in Starblood Stalkers. You're going to see Hexbane's Hunters now.
Yeah, for
To
sure.
minimize that. But it's kind of cool seeing how people build with Stormcast because you can get that model count up.
And
They-
I mean, they've got the nasty boys in those, the paladins, right? Like they've got the
Mhm.
cheapest 4/8 profile in the game. I think it's so cost effective for the points that you're paying for it. I mean, we say that at One Warhammer World, Phylax on Discord, Demetrios, shout out again for props for that win, man. It's still impressive to bring him and get it done because, yeah, just really cool to see a list that models that everybody's like, oh, I think they're pretty good, and then they actually win it. So yeah, look out because your 260 point FOMO is going up against a 155. That's basically I guess you're hitting on fours and it's hitting on fives, but it's still it's doing the same amount of damage per dice roll essentially.
I would also
Yeah.
argue too, like
The
the
Star Soul
Annihilator having a
Mace.
2-inch range. I'm
Right.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Peter.
No, yeah. Just saying, like the Star Soul Mace, if you can get them positioned where they need to be, the deck so fast, it's not even funny.
Mhm.
But the key part is you have to get them in the right position.
Mm-hmm. The
Warrior
nets,
Chamber. I'm sorry. The
nets are
Warrior
huge for these
Chamber.
guys for a weakness. Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Is it okay?
Actually,
Can I
if
have
you don't
my-
mind, I'll
you
go.
want me to raise my hand
No.
next time? Oh, thank you. I'm appreciative of that. Thanks, sir. The Warrior Chamber, they have if there's any ally with a point of damage on them, like within like I think it's like a couple inches on the double, they do get a free move, so they can cheat out a little bit of move like that, which is kind of really nice. So that's another little thing to do. We don't have it on the screen here, but questers can teleport on a quad. They can teleport and drop a paladin, which is what Phylax did to engage a ranged threat to keep it locked down. And you're going to see these guys frequently as big allies just to drop in for somebody that needs like what's better than 200 points to be like 4-6, 3-5. It's got 6 toughness, 25. If I leave it, like what's the worst happens if I leave it on a point to defend? Like they have a lot of ways to build and have fun with. They're awesome looking models. They're just really cool stuff. I really like Stormcast. And I think that they have a lot going for them in terms of viability. Depending on the pack, they will struggle with the objectives. But overall, I think they're pretty solid. Like burn, there's a lot more burn in the game now to handle them. So that's definitely something you can pack. Flame hurlers, crackling arcs, those things we discussed prior, those things melt through these things.
Like I know we're going to get to it. Like what they struggle against too is ranged, right? Because of how slow they are. Just being able to shoot them constantly from a distance, either hitting hard or crit fishing. But I figured to see a lot of annihilators or grand hammers. Like don't underestimate that 2-inch range. That's a threat range of 5, right? They move 3, 2-inch range, or they can sit in the dead center of an objective and control almost the entire thing by themselves, right? Like that's scary for a 145 point model. Strength 6, 3-5. Like you're going to be knocking out some chaff like a skeleton in one hit, probably no problem. It's just really good kind of a small area of control, even to make up for that low movement.
And the
Right.
tempo that they can get from Calthea too. Like if Calthea is coming in there, I mean, it's you can't talk about Order and Stormcast without Calthea, right?
We'll get some of the next
Um,
slides here because Calthea, I can rant
is it-
about how
yeah.
much I hate this model. So
But yeah, it's that Lord Imperator triple, but like just the way that it can change the way that you thought the round was going to go. You know, you're like, all right, this guy over here is going to be safe on this point. All of a sudden, Calthea swings this guy over, and now he's, you know, you got to make a hard decision about which model you're going to save or which one you're going to activate, because all of a sudden you got two different annihilators that are on top of a model that you thought was gonna, you know, you were going to be able to respond to it. You can't. So yeah, they can get pretty scary. Good with these boys.
Move it up.
Here we go.
oh yeah,
Pete,
This one
you want to
brief.
do the nasty?
yeah.
Keep
these
this
was
one
Pete.
brief.
KO. Yeah. These are the guys that I'm so excited when we finally get a points update, because if there's a poster child for why there should be a points update, it's these guys.
Yeah,
Oh, where to
big one
start?
right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
50-point chaff, 12 wounds that can gun line.
I mean, like not
All
just that too. Like how cheap an Aether Cannon is, right? 10-inch range, string 5'10",
Mhm.
5'10", insane profile, and like combine that with the fact that even if you didn't want to bring their chaff, didn't want to bring their gun line, you could just bring a company captain as an ally into any list and then fight for profit, right? +2 attacks on an objective, nice little fat aura for a 90-point discount. Like that's if you want to bring him. Like you bring something that's a little stronger, like the Endrin Master. Like you have a 10-inch move, can move for 10 inches, land, pop, fight for profit, and still have 4 shots at 5 strength, 3/5 damage, right? You just have it teleporting. Like, yeah, these guys right here are going to hit like a truck. I fully expect to see these guys in this mission, either cannon spam, just Arcanaut cutter spam, or just even brought as an ally, just because fight for profit, it's too strong of an ability to not bring it.
And
Makes me
especially
upset.
expecting, you know, probably, you know, four missions, balance pack, we're probably looking at between at least one treasure, at least one objective, probably one more of each. You know, if we get a kind of a more brawly pack, we might have 2 kill missions that don't have objectives on them. But I mean, when you're playing KO on an objective mission, okay, cool. I guess I'll just eat these bullets and cry a little bit. But yeah, it's just wild how good they're, and they're good. Like they're good range, they're good in melee. You know, one of the things I think that they don't stand up as soon as something big gets in front of their face, right? Aether Cannon, 12 wounds, and they're targets again, right? You got to try to screen as much as you can. Harder to do in Warcry, obviously, just because it's just the functionality of the game. But you know, once if you shoot your Mizzen Master into something that can hit back and survive those hits, it's getting lifted probably. You know, they hit really hard, but they're kind of not glass cannons, but like they're frail cannons. They're what's stronger than glass but weaker than metal? I can't. What's somewhere in between there?
Plastic cannons.
There we go. They're PVC cannons.
I think there's like 2 other weaknesses we got to talk about too, though, right? Like generally speaking, they're slow. They don't really have any movement abilities, so they're gonna be plinking around the board at move 3. Get around this the same way Soulblight does with just spamming hordes, but at least Soulblight could still move, right?
And they don't have the double, right, that Soulblight has to really
Right.
zip something fast.
And
They're
this is
high
going to
points.
especially hurt them at Adepticon, as we mentioned earlier. Gur terrain doesn't really have that many walls, right? So you might be in cover, but we could still shoot you. When we're talking about some of the original terrain, especially when we were talking about the Necropolis terrain, those big blocky buildings, it's not going to be as hard just to stand behind a building and not get shot at all. Meaning that
Right.
they're going to have to reposition these thunder cannons, which only move 3 inches at a time. And if they're wasting their time having to move those cannons, 8 thunder cannons, Aether cannons, whatever mortar gun they're going to bring, if you're going to have to force them to move, that's an extra turn with an extra less shot that's coming at you.
and more chance to counter it, right? You're having to shuffle it, and anytime it's not shooting, it is not getting its points worth. It's not worth being there. So
right.
So the other interesting part on it, like I didn't put in Engine Master on foot. That like is a pretty solid foot hero that hits hard. This is just to cover and encapsulate the FFP with good chaff, Aether cannon combo. Like this is all you really need to see. You're most likely going to see a balloon because people go wild for balloons. I don't know why.
Balloons are
This
cool, man. You never got a balloon
I-
animal?
Yeah,
I
have you
know,
ever been to
and,
any
uh,
party ever? What kind of childhood did you have? No balloons? Jeez.
I don't know.
pass.
I disagree. I disagree. I think you're going to see a lot more admirals. I think you're going to see more Arcanaut admirals in the mix
Ooh.
because, unlike the engine master, right, who's a great melee piece, but he has no range
No
ability.
range, right?
Admiral can sit back and shoot too. So if he's got a very solid melee profile, that when you put him with the ether cannons, he's going, yeah, you can come over here. We'll see what happens. But if you don't, he's still shooting right alongside everybody else and chipping away damage. And it's incredible, especially those privateers, right? They chip away damage. It is obnoxious. Like everybody focuses ether cannons, as you should, because who wants those to stick around for 4 rounds? But those privateers will chip away at your pieces because there's so many of them.
If
Especially
you charge that Aether Cannon, if you charge that Aether Cannon down, right, to kill it, sure, you kill it, but then you've got 3, admirals around, and you did that on the very first activation of the turn. They're all shooting you, and what's your plan in round 2 when you've got to either kill your way out or extract yourself in a way that isn't going to let that model get melted. So sometimes it's a worthwhile trade, because you're kind of, you could say there's 3 of them, and plus the Aether Cannon, it's like, what is that, 300-ish points that you're kind of melting and activating and trading more or less, even if you don't necessarily kill the models. But yeah, I had a game where I was fighting with a brute boss and sent it over there to try to take care of him, and he was riddled with holes by the time that fight was done.
These guys are essentially, in my opinion, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're some of the biggest gatekeepers like you'll see in a tournament, right? Like you're playing Tau in Warcry. This is what this is pretty much, is like you're just okay, cool. Like we're just gonna you if you don't have a plan for them, they're gonna skew that mission so hard against you. If they're just gonna sit there and you're like, I don't have anybody that goes more than 4, and you're walking up to them, they're gonna be like, cool, thanks. Here's 1,000 shots. Oh, okay, by the time you got to me, you're dead, and I just like shoot again. Right. So like planning on that, and like the biggest weakness like that, like you guys all covered all of them, but jam a Varangard in there, right? Because all of a sudden like the reducing like high toughness against the privateers, they have to crit fish, they will chip, but like that's still saying you have to roll better, and that's a hard thing to do there. And other than like, if also FFP is a triple, it requires them to be in a certain position. It is a setup, so it's a tempo loss on the play to get a force multiplier. So you have to be aware they're going to set it up. You have a chance to respond, but how will you respond? And you just jam something in their face and rock them. They're cool. Like it's you think it'd be a lot more fun to play something that like shoots chimera damage from range, but then you just realize you're like, oh, I'm just sitting here with some little short dudes and that's it. And they just roll some dice, and then if they get to you, it's going to be a problem. If they don't, it's like usually a pretty big breeze. They have the most wins, I think, according to the Salty Seas data. I think they have the most wins out of tournaments logged. Like that he has. So it gives you indication their power is there. And yeah, dude, 50 points for that's absolutely ridiculous. Claws of Karanet got 95 points for a dude that it looks like Swiss cheese if you look at it wrong, but this is 50 points for all this, like insane. And it just combos well with what you're doing. So they could get 3 Aether Cannons and still get up to 10 models. Like it's bananas.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's like
to see if they show up on the pack.
I think
Just 'cause-
gatekeeper is the best way to describe it. They're just the right mix of power and the right mix of popular. You're going to see them.
100%.
And talking about like they have the most wins in tournaments. Unfortunately, because sometimes they just shoot you off the board by turn 2, and the mission doesn't matter. So
Which
yeah,
I'm
gotta have a plan.
curious though, because I think if there's a 6 objective mission, which is pretty likely, we got ley lines, which they can kind of, if you get lucky with initiative, you can kind of cheat out a lower objective gain with that one. But there's at least 2, right? They don't really, unless you bring the balloons, they don't have great treasure carriers, to be honest. Like they want to be on treasure, but they're not good at carrying it because they die. Like, yes, the chaff are good for soaking attacks, but they still die. Everything in the warband dies if you're really trying to get after it.
Yeah, you can lift them.
Yeah. So,
You have
but
to
it's just
remember
like the
too,
movement
the
that they
leader needs to
struggle.
carry the treasure for Fight for Profit to have times
Yeah.
two. So it even
Yeah.
limits
Right.
them even more if they want to maximize the amount of damage they have.
Right.
Something to keep in mind too. I don't know about you guys, but something I always think about engaging their back line. I want to engage more than one model.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have to make their
Because
disengages awkward.
right, because if you only do one and he disengages and then shoots you, then everybody around goes, "Yes, I can finish off this model." Where if you clump it up or get even two right, you're forcing two models to waste half their activations just to be able to you.
Well,
Right.
that doesn't matter for the chaff though, right? Like
They
the
have
It does.
no men.
what
They
is
have
it?
no minimum.
The privateers. Those guys can just shoot. They don't have
Right.
the minimum range on it. But yeah, if you've got like you said, the Aether Cannon and the leader or something like that, anything with that min range for sure, try to double engage them because
It still
any
matters though, because even like they don't have a minimum range, you still have to be within 3 inches. So it's
Mhm.
not unrealistic to engage two models and be 4 inches away from all the other ones. So even if they disengage, they can't shoot in unless they move into you, right?
Right.
So
It
it
stops
still
the Ether
matters.
cannons from shooting at you too. Like even if
Yeah.
you're engaged
Yeah.
with a couple of privateers, that's still stopping the big guns from shooting at the piece
Yep.
you want to be killing things.
Mhm.
Listen, all you got to do is
Mhm.
go and sit on their face. Problem solved. Next slide. Get over these guys. Don't like them. Pass. They're good. You're going to see them. Oh, dispossessed. I don't even care.
I'm
Monster does not
so
play here.
excited
No
about
monster.
Dispossessed coming around. I've been raving about these guys for weeks. Uh, number one, by themselves, they're okay, right? They have the soul sworn ability that if they die, another model gets to go, right? So if you look at, for example, like their Ironbreaker 3313, but just like Siark, they have that T5, right? So they're going to be a pain to move. Uh, but it comes down to me personally when I think about them. We're to ignore the Carbidus, like original idea before monsters were eliminated was to spam a whole bunch of these iron breakers and the carbides, and every time you kill an iron
What are you
breaker, the
calling it?
carbidus,
What
however
are
you
you calling
say
it?
it, carbidus,
Carbonese.
carbides,
Carbonese. Hey,
Carbides.
carbides.
I saw that on a
Carbides.
menu in Italy
It's
one
it's
time.
the New
Like,
York accent coming out. What I gotta say, right? Uh, was to give that monster many more attacks, but I think we're going to see these guys as allies, either the Rune Lord or the
Mhm.
Warden King. Their double ability to count as three models
That's it.
solves problems for stuff like Stormcast, right?
Yep,
So
for
I could
sure.
bring 6 Stormcast, this Rune Lord, and it's like I'm playing with 8 models, right? He goes, sits on a point, pops a double, says I count as three unless you kill me. Sure, he uses up some dice, but for 115 points, that's a steal, right? Like it really takes these small war bands in order. It really amplifies what they can do. So
You have to say the original French translation ability name if you do it though. It will be necessary to pass on the body. You're not allowed to call. I don't even know what the actual ability is called. You have to say it will be necessary to pass on the body, and then you put your model on the point, and then they have to deal with it.
yeah, they have to pass on the body. I like it.
Yeah, it
Let's
will
go.
be necessary.
Right. We don't have to worry about any Carbides at Adepticon because
That's,
no monsters. But
doesn't that mean seize the day, right?
that does mean
Carbides.
Carbides. My
I was
uncle
just waiting for
Carbides.
someone to say Carbides nuts. So I'm just
Yeah,
waiting.
that was the slam dunk I was looking for before, but I held
Yeah.
off because it was low hanging fruit. But it's still fruit. So
I mean, they're dwarfs. They are low hanging, so it makes
oh
sense.
my god.
Kyle, I
So
think you're right that we'll probably only see these guys as allies just because of the monster band. I think they probably do best with the monster
I
still.
would not be shocked if you see like a just T5 spam. Someone's
Yeah.
playing a gyrocopter. It's going to have like some silly ally. They're going to be way more annoying than you anticipate.
That's true.
They're slow. Focus fire them down. Let them
Mhm.
take another action. Stay out of the way. Who cares? And then you go.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
something to
like,
keep in mind. Sorry, Kyle. Something to keep in mind too, though, is they have the ability to really hunker down on objectives, but you
Yeah.
still have to get them to the objective
Yeah.
and their move 3. So it's that is something to keep in mind with that. Is yeah, if they get there, you're gonna have it's gonna be a pain in the butt to get them off, but they still have to get to that position.
The other thing
I
that their weakness against is that you have to sequence right with them, because the reaction that makes them so good can only be used by the model that's dying. So if you're only targeting stuff that has been already activated, then you're not worrying about the reaction once that thing dies.
like Order doesn't really have a lot of like big monster units that they could bring. It's kind of one of their faction weaknesses. But I could see someone trying to bring like Knave Black Talon to try to come in as a pseudo
Yeah.
monster and try to build around that instead of something else. So I wouldn't be
That's fair.
surprised to see Knave and then just spam Ire Breakers and other stuff in
I mean,
conjunction.
Achillean Kings, chuck them in there.
Right.
Right?
Anything
Yeah.
that's going to value off an extra action, because that's what Order
Mhm.
wants to do, is cheat out actions anyway. But
Yeah.
Carbades, we're going to have to pass on this and then go to the next one. This was good. There's not much there. You will see them, though. I wouldn't be disappointed. Oh,
Why would you? Why would you?
this
Whoa,
nightmare
sorry.
again. Ooh,
I'm just hitting buttons.
oh,
I don't even know what I'm doing over here. How about this?
look, it's my
I'll
boys,
skip.
the
I'll
Catholite
skip.
hosts.
That's right.
Yeah.
We know about no.
Yes. Yeah, we've
Rob,
already
just
seen
go
this in the
into this.
past
You know you
7
love them.
months.
Rob, we're
It's
playing
gonna,
Smash or Pass.
we're gonna play Smash or Pass. I'm smashing all day.
All right.
We're
Smash
I'm taking
COS. Cast the lights.
cast the light hosts.
Cast the lights.
Cast the lights. Right. Every time you say it, it should be in your head as a two-step into a breakdown for someone screams cast the lights, and then that's it. Form the chin instead of formation. That's it. And that's what I want you to think of when you play them. These dudes are really rad. They're new. I've been putting a lot of work into them. I don't want to spend too much time because I've been on like two other people's shows talking about them, which is awesome. Go check out Tabletop Beyond. Go check out off meta musings. They're gonna have these on there. I give like a really good full breakdown on them. These dudes are sick for internal synergy. It's basically castle control without having to spend dice to really set it up. Your Fusil Major Ogre Warhulk is really rad for enabling it with the different rune actions. Instead of going into how they play, basically, they have really decent chip shot shooting, and then they have a turbo control counter where like they can either get 1 toughness or any misses deal 2 back to you. So it's kind of like reaction control. And then the flag guys on a triple is going to move everybody within 6 inches directly towards him, so they could pass him up as long as they were closer to him than when they started. They're fine. They have a lot of
It's a 6-inch
really
bubble, right?
It's a
Like,
6-inch
just a
bubble,
full. That's
everything.
insane.
So they can just go shoot, 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 and you're like, well, they're not anywhere. Dude moves, pulls everybody up 4. So everybody just took 3 actions and just shot and chipped out half your army, and that's it. They're really weak to monsters. Dragon Maul, taking you out of your castle feels really bad, but that's not here, so don't worry about it.
Well, pulls though,
Um,
right? So if you're
Pulse,
facing
anything
against
that
like
can
Great Gray
disrupt,
Shaman,
right? Anything that can disrupt positioning is really huge against them. They do have generous 3-inch bubble and 6-inch bubbles, but like it's still really big deal. They don't do well into super high toughness things. Like Stormcast would be an issue for these guys unless like, because like, yeah, they can put themselves up to toughness 6-7 no problem, and then like respond, but you're not going to be able to get the appropriate chip for it, and you don't have anything. They don't really take allies well. I would be surprised if you saw these guys. I don't, and it
I'm
only
gonna
because
I'm gonna disagree with that one. They're the newest kid on the block. People are just gonna bring them because the models are cool.
you know
Like,
what though, they're hard to paint and put together for a lot of people. That's
but
the
they've been
thing.
out, right? They've been out since they came
Rob,
out
you're
this month,
projecting
I believe.
again. You're,
We got three
What's that?
3 months for
Projecting.
people to paint these up. Like, you're gonna see them.
All right. So let's say we see them, right? Basically, how you're gonna get into them is pretty much you gotta disrupt. You can outweight them. They don't do well into hordes, even though they can chip. They don't do well like making them spread apart. If you make them divide, they fall apart real quick. And as cool and efficient as they are with like the steel helm and everything, if you're fighting them on their terms, they're just going to counter and ship a ton of damage
Mhm.
back to you, and they're going to sit there and just be like, well, you just wasted a Titan piece onto the 60 point that had T7. You were hitting on 5 ups. You didn't roll well. It took 2 actions for you to kill. They really deny efficient point value from other units. But that to say, like, if they don't get the setup time or you out like or you strip away activations, they can be lifted pretty easily.
I think their biggest weakness is they're so passive if you're playing that reaction
Yeah.
control. Like you are not in control of the game. You're counter punching the entire time, and it's an incredibly powerful counter punch, but you're not able
Right.
to dictate pace or flow at that point. So like
Right.
Reaper, what's your plan? I mean, you're in big
Chip
trouble.
shot.
You know,
You're gonna
and
get
like
shot,
yes, they
yeah.
have to come into you, but like it's they're and if you're playing against them, right, like don't just charge in after they've set up their, you got to try to win initiative whenever you can. Get stuff like the Ogre Warhulk, which 30. Go ahead and take down a FOMO's worth as fast as you can, right? 35 wounds, 6 toughness. If possible, try to clean him out of there. The pistols, obviously, anything with a gun with the elite rune mark, you want to get rid of as soon as possible, just because
100%.
But yeah, like I think they're good in a lot of different ways, but as soon as they're playing like another passive warband, I think it gets into this really funky kind of like slow tempo game that I think I think they might still be advantaged technically, right? Because of their movement shenanigans, but they still have to be clustered. So, if you're playing Soulblight in a 6 objective mission, I think you're in bad shape. Just because they can split up, they don't care, and you have to kind of stay centralized.
Right. The other thing
too
too is
they definitely struggle on treasure missions because they don't have the speed.
yeah.
They'll do well in objective missions because castle's what they want to do anyway. They struggle on kill missions. They just don't have a ton of offensive output.
Yeah.
But in terms of playing against them too, like one of the weaknesses I want to point out is remember the reactions to borrow someone else's rune marks, right? So killing like that Fusel Major somehow right off the bat with like your Titan model shatters their army. If you kill that free guild command core, which it's not too hard, 4 toughness, 15 wounds, right? All that movement shenanigans is absolutely gone, right? So
there's usually no redundancy for that. You don't want 2 of those in the list. You spend so much on it. So as soon as you kill that first one, it's a big target.
Right.
So 1 or 2 deaths and the list falls apart. So it's gonna be a very tough warband to bring into a tournament. But I still think it's the same because the models are cool.
You will see them. The one thing that they do is that reaction works against ranged. So it
I was just thinking, if you're bringing him, just hope you draw KO in every single round.
Man. Having played them into KO, they choke KO out because all of a sudden they say, cool, throw your 4 dice hitting on 5s against me, 2 go right back to you while I just keep walking slowly. And they can't do a goddamn thing about it. And it's pretty awesome. Wilder Core, let me see that crossbow spam. 6 back to you. That's half your life. Try again. And then it's really cool. So although they're passive and they have clear ways to play against, they do challenge you. Can you roll better? So yeah, if you're a master of rolling
just crit,
if you're rolling 5 ups all day, I mean you're a hero, right?
But if you're good these guys as like a meta killer, right? Like they come in, they want to fight a very specific meta, and they will counter that meta. But once they're in there and people know that they're around, people are just going to scatter and your team's going to fall apart. So like if you're going in there and as you said, if you think you're going to fight KO all day, every day, bring them in. You're going to mess some people up, but in a large tournament, you can't guarantee that. Counter. Yeah.
I also think, interestingly enough, a lot of warbands, after turn 1 setup, they get their strength by the position and then they go into it. Where these guys in round 1 are the strongest because it's the Fusel Major's double. Bubble, everything's got 2 toughness, and all of a sudden if you had like an alpha pin or an alpha strike or an alpha shooting of any type, it's kind of rendered really ineffective. It's when you pull them in and they're not set up is when you have the advantage. So if I think they're an incredibly difficult army to pilot. They're really cool for what they play and their uniqueness, and they definitely want to counter a specific metagame, but I think they're healthy for that because if there's enough these kids in there, you're going to see less KO, and I think that's awesome. But we're done. I've talked about these guys a million times. Done. They're cool.
The flamethrowers. Get rid of it. We're done.
Kyle says they're going to be everywhere. Bet your bottom dollar. Yeah. Okay.
You're going to see some. The models are too cool. New kid on the block.
Too
new
cool.
models always
new
show
kid
up.
on the block.
It's like FEC. Same thing. It's going to show up. They got the new models. People want to play new stuff.
I hope.
Pete, did you have anything about these guys before we shimmy?
No,
I'm sorry, Pete.
Rob's all about these guys, but it's just, I don't know. I really hope we see a couple of war bands at Adepticon because I mean, like we're coming up on 50 possible players at this tournament. I mean, which is awesome.
I haven't checked it. Like the day after, it was in the high 30s, I think.
We were at
43 was
40s
the
last
last
time I
count
saw it.
I saw.
Woo-wee. Let's go.
43.
Hey, more people. If you're not signed up and you're going to Adepticon or you're thinking about it, hey, come hang out. I think we're all going to be there. So come and
Yeah,
come and
we
get
should.
nasty with
Right,
us.
and bring these guys just
Yeah.
so we don't have to deal with
Bring
KO.
these-
So,
Yeah, if you bring and if you
But
play KO or Soul
there's
Blade, we're
definitely
just
a
not
place
friends.
for 'em.
It's fine.
right, that's why I'm not friends because I'm probably going to bring Soul Blight.
If
So,
if you bring these guys a BKO, we'll buy you a drink. We'll
yeah,
catch you at the
100%.
bar after.
100%.
Yeah, I'll buy you a drink, or maybe we can share like a tobacco dip together, like mouth to mouth. It'll be
Or
really
maybe even Lady in the Tramp a noodle. You know, whatever you're.
cool.
Getting
Yeah,
romantic.
we tie all the noodles together, so joke's on you.
Yeah.
You know.
it's a noodle hula hoop.
Right. It's just it's
one
really
14-foot long noodle, please.
that's it. We're really just like the long tied up noodles in this family. You know, Mike and I have been practicing for a while. So next,
So Pete, nothing on these guys.
I think it's all been said. I think I'll
Sure.
save my comments for the much better choices later in the PowerPoint. Yeah.
yeah, next.
Whoops.
The
Bladeborn.
better choices right here. You predicted
Let
the future.
Pete let Pete handle this one. Pete's got this.
Let the quiet guy talk. Come on now.
Just
Quiet,
shut up.
you.
I
Zip it.
Peter, please stop
The
yelling.
real question is how many people are going to bring Hexbane's Hunters? I like. Are we hedging bets here?
Ooh.
Because
A lot.
I would be
More
shocked.
or
if-
less than Calthea. Will we see more Hexbane or more Calthea, do you think?
More Calthea.
You expect
Incorrect. They're going to be
Calthea.
together.
Yeah,
Incorrect. They're going to be
It's a
together.
1-to-1.
Right.
It's a
Our
1-to-1. They're going
powers
to be together.
combined.
Right.
But again, talking about what Bladeborn brings to the table, right?
Go, no, Pete. We're sorry.
Like,
Go ahead. Go nuts.
Pete,
man.
I wasn't even talking. Stop being rude, please.
Did I jam?
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
A
he's
little
jammed
bit.
up. Okay.
It's okay, baby. You got it.
And
We got Pete Marley over there. He'd be jamming.
he's jamming. Oh,
right, Pete.
somebody else.
Pete, I think you're back. If you can't,
Am I good?
if you can't hear us, there's a problem. But we can see you.
It was a nice intermission, but you're back, Pete.
Every time Pete's about to talk, quick, jam him.
I have a button. I paid
But-
extra for the software to have a Pete quiet button.
It's important. But I think Quiet Pock is awesome. I think Hexbane bringing the couple of the dogs there. Again, talking about bringing in bodies.
Yeah.
You get some nice pull, which again is half the value of the triple. That's how many people you get an extra action within a certain bubble, right? So you're gonna see Calthea for anybody that's taken order really seriously. Boost. Kixie
who's
Taka,
bringing the
Starblood
lead,
Stalkers. What?
I
say
think
that again?
Kixie's old news.
I think Calthea wants to come in the elite order lists. You know, I think she goes with the
Mhm.
things that are the hitters, and then you've got your Hexbane or your Starblood Stalkers that are coming in, the stuff that want cheaper bodies that need to fill out the list a little bit more with some activations.
I mean,
Well,
the fun
again,
part is
Starblood-
they'll have different. Sorry, go ahead, Pete.
No. Well, just Starblood Stalkers, right? You're still going off a 1.0 algorithm, right? So you're
Mhm.
getting these little
Right.
crit fishers for a very efficient point cost. And Rob says they're old news. They might be old news, but old news is still pointed very well.
Yeah, they're not like there's such a good
But you were
synergy
saying-
like with what they're looking for with the order, like the big guys, right? They give you cheap bodies that move fast, that don't need to move, they can just shoot, so they don't want to be engaged ever, so they run to a point, then they can shoot, they can crit like crazy. Kixie Taka's got that sick 9-inch aura, right, where it's +1 move and +1 toughness, I think. So it's even,
Correct.
helping your stuff survive. He's got that wizard attack, there's just so much utility in them. And again, same with Hexbane, they just do everything you want, a bundle of allies that are cheap bodies to do, which is why you see them so frequently.
I mean, people are going to pick up based on what they need, right? Like, do they
Mhm.
want a generalized move that's not very specific, low toughness, plus maybe a couple bodies? They're going to grab Kixie. Do they want to activate one or two pieces just to go again and again, like an Arbalister, right? You're going to start seeing Calthea go in there. Are they going to say, well, you know what? I don't really need any more dice abilities. I just need some bodies. Maybe some ranged attacks. You're going to see Hexbane. Like that's one of the things, like you mentioned, why Quiet Pock is so good. If you're expecting Caradron Overlords, Quiet Pock shoots 5 inches farther, is going to be hitting on threes because it's strength 4 versus toughness 3, and it's 3/6 damage, right?
Mhm.
So right off the bat, he's going to shoot. And we talked about additionally how flame hurlers are so good because of that splash damage. On a double, Quiet Pock can do the same thing. So I fully expect to see a lot of Quiet Pocks as I counter both Caradron Overlords, having that ranged attack damage. And honestly, just because they don't need the dice if they don't want to. Just bring extra 2 bodies for 110 points with those dogs. Like
Mhm.
the Hexbanes are going to me, be the new Kixie because the points are there and they bring everything you want.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
And they're
for sure.
popular. People wanted them. They love them.
Right. Yeah. People just want to play Witch Hunter, right? Like
Yep.
that's what they've been asking for forever is like when Nether Maze, when Nether Maze. Well, we got Nether Maze. People probably got them. They're eager to put them on a board. And they're decent. They're shockingly decent in Quiet Pock.
Mhm.
Yet again, there's a lot more answers now from all these new Bladeborn to KO. So I'm hoping people show up with this stuff because it decentivizes people just standing there with Aether Cannons because
And
there's
just diversifies the field. Right? You
for
want to
sure,
play more
for
different things. You
sure.
don't want to play the same stuff every time.
Quiet Pock
Yeah.
also good against the Soul Blight with the explosive bolts, like
Mhm.
real
Yeah.
strong, real strong.
Yep, for sure.
I mean, I know I'll be bringing my
It brings
Shadow
an
Stalker
interesting
Bladeborn for sure.
Oh,
Great models.
Peter.
Well, what's interesting though too is like Kyle said, Quiet Pock brings a very interesting thing to certain lists. Like if say you play a more elitist, you got that Stormcast Eternals, right? Having that little piece that can stay back and punch way above its weight class to soften up targets while still having the dogs to split around for objectives, it brings a really nice balance of things to certain lists.
Yeah.
Try to pick off chaff that are going to slow down your big guys, right? Like you can try to clear off the board of some of the littler things that are going to be annoying for Stormcast to deal with.
All right.
Well, the dogs
100%.
make great intercept pieces because again, they're
Mhm.
cheap, they're
Right.
fast, they get in your way, and you don't mind losing the 55-point model much
Yeah.
later.
I'd
Plus,
be
the reaction
surprised
to
if
heal
we
is actually very useful, right? Attack me, heal 3. We've seen that before. It works very well to stay alive.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we didn't see Wildercore as well. Just talking about range shooting and dogs, right? I think the Wildercore is probably going to show up on one or two lists just because Arbalaster's a huge draw, 4/8 damage. It's Baby Hrothgorn. They got the dogs sending that damage all over the board can be just wild. So yeah, I think we'll probably see some of those as well.
For sure.
I mean, if you're going to say talk about that, some ranged abilities, I think we're going to see Flame Seekers. Like popular warband, their double to turn a miss into a hit really lets them swing upwards, right? Like you have your strength 6 Fulmroid Crusher comes into my chaff model. My chaff model is all of a sudden popping it for 12, 18 damage because I got a crit, a hit, and then a miss. And it's like, how is this 90-point model hitting me for 15 plus on a kickback, right? Of course, like all doors, they're going to suffer from movement. They do have movement abilities. They do have the Drothmaster Whip, which I fully expect to see that being used, right?
Yeah.
Like I know people are talking about lists about doing Flame Seekers, adding Hexbane, and the Whipping Pock, right?
Mhm.
Shooting that 3 times is kind of nuts. So
For
I fully
sure.
expect to see Flame Seekers as well.
Yeah. A lot of people painting them. They're just the best Fire Slayer models they've ever made. So yeah, people are like,
Amazing,
these
give us
aren't
some
all
clothes,
garbage.
right?
We can actually paint these and feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, you just all we have to do is give them some clothes, and people are happy, right?
Turns out, yeah, some people just need to put some clothes on, and then they're more tolerable.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from it. That's the one takeaway I had from Flame Seekers. We're ready to jump into the
real man faction.
To the real
meat. Put the meat on the grill. Oh,
As
Peter.
we like to call it the soup.
You gotta.
So
Anybody but us. It has to be Peter.
I think with a preface to this though, before Peter jumps in, because he knows them Gitsos, right? Destruction is predicated heavily on being able to soup it together. So when you're going against, you will see all forms of soup. If you're lucky and you see an all goblin army, have a field day. But listen, like there's a lot of allies and there's a lot of crossplay. It's super difficult to tell you what you're going to expect and see. But Peter has probably one of the best gits lists I've ever seen him played against. So I'm going to let him take over for just at least we're going to go over the base pieces, not the factions as a whole, because there's
Do you want
also
to
a lot
say his
more.
list is also beautifully painted, by the way? That's another thing to mention.
Pass. All right, next. No, I'm kidding. It looks great. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right, with Gits is if we're looking at what you can expect to see at a tournament that's at the bottom.
Do you really have a Pete mute button? Because like this. Wow.
Pete, you hit robot mode.
Oh my god! Look at I love the faces that it pauses on too. It's just so cheery.
He's back.
Oh,
Pete's
He's
back.
back. We got him. Hey baby, let's go. Nope. Try
Cool.
jokes on us, right?
Is he back?
Pete, if you're out there anywhere, we miss you. Come back to us.
We don't know who the chaff is, but we're getting a better idea.
Oh my word! All right, am I back?
There you go.
All right.
Oh,
I
feels
got figure
better.
this out. But talking about Gobapalooza, right? You got the Brugit and you got the Boggle-Eye. I mean, you could talk about the Shrewmancer. Nobody talks about the Spiker and, well, Scaremonger, whatever. But Boggle-Eye and Brugit, right? So the Brugit on a double, you're going to give your friend next to you 3 extra attacks for the next attack action. So that's probably the go-to for most people that are interested in Destruction Soup or saw another Destruction Soup list and went, yeah, that I want to do that.
He gives the nearest Kyle a Monster Energy drink and soups him up, gets him ready for action.
Look, after one drink, everything looks like drywall. So,
but on top of just being a the fact is having 12 wounds for 70 points, 4 attacks, yeah, you'll get countered to death. But going after something that's already activated, he can surprisingly take on things around his size. Boggle-Eye, again, a double. It's value of the ability there. Going to reach out and try to give you a net on a 3-up. And again, 12 wounds. So they're very nice utility pieces. No matter what type of destruction you're playing, you can find a place for one of those. Gits related, just pure Gits. I mean, I'll be a strong advocate for saying the Bounder Boss is the only hero you should be braining right now until they fix some things. But having the ability to have this 8 range model that on a triple might triple that distance based on Madcap Destruction, right? Because what that does, you're going to roll a dice, and then you're going to move twice the value of whatever you roll. It's as ridiculous as it sounds. Sometimes it's all in, hey, I just moved this guy 12 inches and smashed into something, and the other times you roll a 1 and you're moving 2 inches. But he can be a wild speed piece, and you never build on a quad, but I'll tell you what, you get a quad with this guy, it can be
awful. It's awful.
Ridiculous.
It's just better. It's old Rampage plus crit damage, so it's like it's even better now since the Rampage nerf because you move your 8. You're not just moving the value of the dice, so it's irrelevant. Yeah, but yeah, and he's got boing 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 too, right? So that if you just want to charge and clean up a chaff,
boing 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 disappeared. That was first today.
Okay, cool. So he doesn't have a charge and deal damage anymore.
Madcap. It's just Madcap because Madcap will deal the damage, but only if you finish with
Correct.
Oh, it does still do the damage though, right?
Right.
Yes, it does.
But Mike brings up a good point,
Yeah.
right? Like having an alternate to Rampage isn't always a bad thing to have, right? Is it a come up every game? Absolutely not. But when it does come up, that can make or break a game, right? Having a really
Gits, you're
good
never using Rampage though. Like,
right.
if you're playing Gits, you're literally only using the Gits squad.
Yeah. So it's something to keep in mind there, right? Because oftentimes I pair up with another Destruction Titan. So say I get a quad that's quad 6, quad 5. Well, I'm going to give that to my Ogre, right? Because I'm going to get the most out of that. I get a quad 1, then Bounder Boss is suddenly going like, yeah, I'll hop over there and attack something 3 times. So it's nice because the biggest thing with Gits is there is a wealth of abilities and ways to play, and that's also one of their biggest weaknesses. Because if you do not take advantage of everything that they can do, up very quickly, and that's I think why you see Gits have such a terrible win rate.
Right.
They're hard to play well. Another great piece is Snurk Sourton. If you have an experienced Snurk, well, bless you.
If you haven't experienced Peter playing Snurk, consider yourself blessed.
I have. I still remember that game because I was like, I can't believe how much damage this thing just did to me. Like, whoa.
I got incredibly lucky last Adepticon. Peter, he brew-gated Snurk and like whiffed on like 5 dice when he was hitting on 3s, and I was like, this Peter guy's not even that good at this game, man. He's all right, I guess, but
I heard Peter likes to roll multiple ones.
It's true. It's true, but I can't blame the dice because gravity dice. I can't blame the dice.
Blame gravity.
Blame gravity. Yeah. Blame gravity.
Like what I'll say about Gits is like when you think in terms of like a tournament, right? They're a very, very high skill cap, right? But that high skill cap comes with extremely high power, right? Like using that net effectively, using that potion effectively, or using Snurk effectively can utterly dominate the game in the right situation. But with any very high skill cap team, you also have to think about the mental tax, right? I remember my first tournament, for example, I brought Soulsworn because I wanted 6 bodies because it was simple. I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to go in, I want to play my best Warcry with the least amount of thinking. You might say to yourself, like, hey, there's going to be 50 people at this tournament. It's going to be all day. Do I want to be thinking about exactly where I want to place a Boggle Eye? Do I want to be thinking exactly where I want to place a Snurk Sour Tongue? Do I want to exactly remember how to sequence Brewgit every single time for maximum effects, right? Not to say you shouldn't run them, but just something to keep in mind that when building your team, that mental load really makes a difference over a long day.
Practice, you need to know what you're doing with it. That's why Peter can do it in his sleep because he's played a billion games with them. But like, your first game with Git, it's not going to go well unless you roll 6s. You're going to have a real tough time because you're going to go, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing and when. So once you get
I've heard Pete actually eats stuffed mushrooms the day before the tournament. Just make sure he's in the mood, right?
He doesn't eat anything for 2.5 weeks before the tournament. He blood dopes with mushrooms.
He blood dopes like he's him and Lance Armstrong hanging out about the place.
Comes down off the mountain. It's high mushroom intake diets only.
High mushroom. He's like, listen, I got shiitake. He has like little trench coat he opens up, rubbing it on his face.
I can his trench coat. It's an actual mushroom trench coat.
Right.
Well, I can say I definitely agree with Kyle though in the fact that like your brain's gonna hurt playing this warband. So if you're not into that, like apparently I enjoy that because it's just I can't get enough of this warband. But you're gonna pay for it. Like there's a lot, especially if you're doing well in the tournament going into round 4. I mean, like you better refocus yourself because the last 3 games we're gonna tax you going into it.
Get some smelling salts and just get locked in again.
May or may not have a shot of epinephrine prior to the last game.
Right?
Don't do that. Do not approve of it. Don't do it.
Unless you need it. If you need it,
if you're in anaphylactic shock, maybe
probably go ahead and use it. That's
probably
whatever your doctor has advised. This we didn't say this. We're not.
Rob is not a doctor. Please,
I'm not a doctor.
Any advice? Yes.
He's the chef, not a doctor.
I'm a chef.
Yeah. Hey, I just saw a guy wearing a white coat, and I just asked him medical questions.
Right.
Just dropped my pants and said, I don't know if you've seen this before, but this isn't normal for me.
Sometimes I just hang out in hallways near bathrooms in a white coat offering unsolicited medical advice about epinephrine shots. It may or may not be good for you. That's how we met.
That was the first time we met. What a day it was.
Right. It was love at first jab in the sternum.
Anyone got anything else on the Gits here? Are we ready to go with the
say, they bring a lot of tools to the table, and especially if you're not even playing Gits, there's a lot to be brought into some of these other destruction plays.
You're probably bringing something from Gits in destruction most of the time. A lot of different puzzle pieces that can fit in a lot of different puzzles.
Absolutely.
Right. Expect to see some of them. They're very popular. Expect to see someone playing Gabos in some fashion.
Great,
Next.
One
great
last thing I'll
models.
say:
Another
tiny
opinion.
models hide very well behind walls.
Next.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hitting it.
Pull the trigger,
Boom.
Mike. Pull the trigger.
There we go.
What's this? What we got here? Rob, you want to do?
Boys,
You want to do KBs and I'll do the Ogies?
Yeah, I'll do the KBs. You could do the Ogos. Cruel Boys are awesome, man. They're just the cool, sophisticated orcs that just want to be sadistic and poison people through cunning and trickery. Pretty much what it comes down to is they don't have like this like insane innate value of power. Like you look at the stats and then you look at the tyrant and gut lord over there and you're like, whoa, 3-6, 5-10, 4-6, 4-8. But then you look at these guys and you're like 5-4-2-5. It's respectable, but it's nothing exciting, right? Where Cruel Boy serves to be really good is in their chaff with the Rippas, right? Like 2-2-3-1-4. You can make it 2-5 with the double, but it's all about the reaction, right? You're going to see these guys because this is the other half of the Dominion box. So, but it's a control faction. People kind of played a little bit more orky typically. If you move within 3, they can react and give somebody else that's within them to attack the thing that just moved to within 3 if they can, right? So that's like the high and tide, and you're going to see that with one of the Bladeborns. They also work on anything out of faction, so they can do Tyrant. They can make Tyrant just throw the javelin. It's ranged and melee, so it's not just that. The killer bosses can absolutely chew through you surprisingly, especially if you pump him with the double, then it's 5-4-3-6. He's not bad. They're kind of tanky. Bolt Boy boss, although it's very selfish and needing doubles, can crit on 4s. So all of a sudden you go, oh man, these 6 Stormcast, oh no, 15-inch range. They're not coming to grab me anytime soon. I'm safe from their deployment for next round. Use a double, critting on 4s. Well, maybe you're hitting 8, maybe you're hitting 12. It's a 50-50 coin flip, so the odds are really high on that. And if you're hitting that and you're just melting down a Stormcast because you don't care, you crit on 4s. Are they behind cover? Crit on 4s. So that's another really good thing. And they can also use the reaction. They can also use the double to make it 2-5 on a range for 3-4-2-5 is also pretty solid. They can be dice hungry and they can be very selfish, but you'll probably see something in there on that. Just know that if you move in and nobody's reacted, you're most likely going to take some hits just for coming in their territory. Ooh, I don't know what just happened there. And yeah,
Your eyes
yeah,
closed,
just
Rob. How's that left arm feeling? Feeling a little strokey?
ooh, kind of
Harvey
stroked out
D's,
there.
very,
Carmen D's with the fights over here. I don't know, man. They're one of my favorite factions to build around. 75 points for 4-4-15 is just a phenomenal rate. 2-inch range. They're really fun to paint. You're gonna see a ton of them everywhere. They're really good, but they also can fall under fire. They don't have any titans, but because you're souping in, you're giving things like Gutlord or Tyrant a free reaction of hitting, and you'll see in the Bladeborn section once we get to a couple of them that like they just absolutely go out of control with certain things. They're deceptively good, but they're also deceptively not. They're not your typical Iron Jaws. They're not going to be beating you out in brawls. They're trying to give free reactions and action economy to destruction, which lacks that.
Yeah,
But
Rob,
yeah.
I think you've played him probably more than anybody else. Not even just here, but just in general. I think you probably got the most KBZ experience. So mostly because you're a sick man and you'll just rep TTS 40 times a day.
Today is the 17th. I'm at 15 for the month. We're trying to get to a solid 30.
Rob, how's your family doing? What are they up to? Have they seen you in a while or?
No, yeah, they're good.
She didn't take the wife didn't take the kids yet. Okay,
listen,
all right. Trying to get 16 in.
I don't shirk those responsibilities. I put them down to sleep, then I play.
Yes.
Right.
Look,
Listen, that's the
little
goal.
bit of NyQuil, they drop right off.
Right.
Benadryl is
Sometimes
great for TTS.
a little chloroform goes a long way. I do not do that.
Don't waste
Right.
Rob actually does those adrenaline shots to stay awake, so he just doesn't have to sleep.
Right.
More work.
Listen,
get him right there.
Everybody's in school. The mice are out. I'm gonna play. Got the house cleaned up. Time to get a couple reps in. Right there we go.
One of the things I do like about the Ball Boy boss, I think a lot of people end up disappointed just because he looks like he does one thing, which is that crit really well, which he does, but he doesn't always do that. So you have to kind of be prepared to pivot. What he does is forces your opponent to make a decision. And it is, do I want to deal with this or do I want to take a bunch of damage? And those are the only two options. And you kind of can't just chuck a chaff at him because he goes venom encrusted weapons or onslaught, and he can get through, the little things. He's got a really solid melee profile. So, it's 170 points to make your opponent to make a choice, right? And if they make the wrong one, or it gives you the opportunity to counter whatever they're sending at it. If they don't send the right thing at it, then they're being punished for that one too, right? Punishing, loyal, these are all things that we would use to describe Bolt Boy Boss and the players like Rob.
Possibly Apex Predator. We don't know. But
yeah, apart from all the other ones above it, Apex,
right,
fully Apex,
fully Apex, pie connoisseur, all these
Apex. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's just an interesting piece.
It's a good piece.
Yeah, and like I said, it doesn't always do exactly what you think it's going to do, but if you know all of its tricks, it's a great utility piece to have. And on this pack, I think it makes a lot of sense too. Get a little bit of range in there if you're playing Cruel Boys, even as an ally for other ones.
Something I love too is I love taking pieces that force my opponent to make difficult decisions. And like you said, like a Bolt Boy Boss will force your opponent to have to make some difficult decisions. Now the problem is you have to feed the Bolt Boy Boss. And that's the downside to him is he needs,
unless there's the threat, right? It's like a net, right? The threat of having him, if you have to feed him if they don't counter him. If they choose to leave him, then you're dumping dice into him to get the value out of him, which means you're not putting dice elsewhere. But again, he's always got a counter to whatever your opponent's decision is, and sometimes it's a dice hungry. Probably 50% of the time it's a dice hungry counter, which isn't necessarily an ideal situation. Which is, again, where some people I think get kind of disillusioned to what it wants to be doing and how it actually performs.
He creates opportunities.
He does.
That's a great way of putting it. Love it.
He forces people to step into engagement range, which triggers the trap, which lets your things get free hits on stuff already. So there's a lot to be said about that. And yeah, there's some games where he's an all-star and he just does everything you want. And then there's some games where it's like, well, he's done like 3 damage at ranged, but like he's controlled an area. So, I mean, it's also something to take into account. He for some reason, has a more feel bad approach than some other ranged units, but he's also, so here, the other sick thing is he's 15-inch range. You want to set KO up. I'm going to threaten the double to just sit there and try to crit you off.
Yeah.
I mean, like the reason he's saying he feels bad is because he's 3-4-2-4, right? So venom encrusted weapons that turns into 3-5. So he does hit like a truck. 4 toughness is respectable and 20 wounds, unlike an Aether Cannon, which T3 12 wounds and terrible melee.
T4,
T4, but still, he's just a lot more to deal with because he's a hero, right? Versus just ability that you could spam.
For sure,
but like
he feels like a bespoke leader at that cost and that stat line and stuff like that with the trick. He kind of feels kind of equivalent.
That's cool. I never even thought about that. Go do some Ogors.
Ooh, talking about these rocket ships here. These things that are all they do is lift stuff off the board. All right, this is my favorite play style in the whole entire game. I want to smash your face into the ground, and ogres are one of the absolute best things to do that. The 2 that you're almost guaranteed to see at the tournament in multiple lists are the Gut Lord, the Glizzy, coming out. He got that 5'10" profile. Range 2 on both of these guys, which is wild. But yeah, two hits on any chaff model, and they just go away most of the time, unless it's like KO and they got the 12, but super efficient at cleaning stuff off. The Tyrant's got 4 attacks. It's only hitting 4-8, but a little more consistent cleaning chaff off with that guy. But Gutlords and Tyrants, just they're winning whatever fight they're in most of the time. With Gutlord, you got a chance of slowly wearing him down and getting the damage on him and stuff like that. If you get a Tyrant off the board, hey, you should get a medal, because that thing's got literally monster level stats all across the board, and he doesn't bracket. He just stays up at full efficiency the entire time. The abilities they have, where they have on the maul path that gives them 7 inches plus that 2 inch of range, so they got a 9-inch threat range on a double, and then they're swinging in with those profiles. Absolutely terrifying. yeah, they're just the Tyrant has a really nice option with that range piece that can really just clean something up. You don't really always want to be using it, but it can be incredibly effective when you need it. So it's just a great utility piece to have. Once they get a kill, they got a double. They can either take a free move or a free action or a free attack action. So they absolutely mow. Both of them have bully of the first degree, I think it is, where they can give something else an attack action on a triple. Which is, just if they're near each other ever, guess what? You're getting another attack coming in at you. Ogres still with all of these beef pieces. Like, yeah, these are the two ones you're going to see. There's a couple of really good ranged ones out there. Obviously, Hrothgorn from the Bladeborn is a real popular pick to ally into stuff. But there's plenty of options. You usually see a good mix of ogre leaders. Double Gutlord, double Brugit came second in Adepticon last year, but with how cheap their chaff is in Noblars, where they're 45 points, and they've got the even cheaper ones. You got a 40-point model in Bladeborn and stuff like that. They're not doing anything other than existing and giving you activations and getting on points and that kind of stuff. But that's all they need to do, because the rest of the game, what you're doing is tidying up. You're just, hey, could you go ahead and put that model away? I don't want to play with it anymore. So,
but you brought up like their biggest weakness at the same time, right? Like, yeah, you have the biggest model, the deadliest model that you could bring into a Warcry tournament, right? It is 315 points. Their chaff that they could bring, that they could spam relatively well, are Noblars or the like, right? So you're talking 6 wound models, T3 in some cases. I know if you got to ally some other people, you can go up to T4, but it's still 6 wounds. I mean, 6 wounds, almost any other chaff in the game could wipe that off the board. And the danger that puts you in becomes a race. Can your Tyrant kill their models faster than you can kill the Noblars? Is by killing enough Noblars, the opponent, one, can't control objectives anymore. Two, the Tyrant only has 2 actions, right? So if I kill 3 Noblars, you go down to 5 models, and I still have 9 models. You just can't keep up with me anymore. I can just keep throwing chaff in your face. I can keep just maneuvering around the board. I can just outweight you and swarm you, right?
The
So that's
double
the risk
they have
you
to
take.
get the move or attack after the kill, though, really does help with that economy. So you can't just throw bodies at them like you can for some other stuff, but it still does slow them down. Absolutely.
I should say throw them in the way, right? You wouldn't want to go into engage range, but put them at 3 inches. Okay, you're either going to throw your ranged attack at me, or you're going to move into me. Just be annoying. But that is the risk with any large monster, is just get rid of the weaker stuff they have to bring, and then they're kind of by themselves.
And if you're fighting against the net, you're in dire danger.
That little goblin, and that little 70-point goblin takes care of a 315-point model. Does not feel good.
Yeah, no, you're having a bad day if you get netted. Yeah, if Prague shows up.
Where's Prague at?
I'm not going to advocate killing Prague. That's not what we're about on this podcast. But but find a way that Prague doesn't net you.
Pass. Prague, murder Prague right off the rep. You see him, murder him. Shank, murder him. So the thing is, like, what makes them deceptively, like Kyle's right, like the chaff they come with, but as allies, they're ruthlessly good. And the other thing too is, like, you think you're safe. A double makes them move 7. They have 2-inch reach. That's a 9-inch threat projection. And honestly, like, if a Gutlord really gets souped up with a Brugit, if we're playing with blessings, which we're not at a Adepticon, they can just. I'm playing with one in TTS League with 7 models, and my Gutlord just like removed a Varangard and then used the double and then removed a Slakehorn in 1 activation turn. Like, so okay, cool. That's 280 points. Souped it up with a blessing for attack. Just removed about 500 your points. So have fun. We were playing Warcry.
Should we shake now, or are we done?
Right. So when you say, like, hey, like, it's a race, well, good thing they're goddamn rocket ships, because those things are fast. And the thing is, so the big thing too, like, we're trying to help people play their best, right? So what do you do when you see it? You can't really outrun them, right? Because they move 7 and they have 2-inch reach, or if they really want to move 11 and just drop on top of you, so they're guaranteeing it next turn, they can, and they have the wounds to kind of throw away to do so. Commit. You have to commit on a Gutlord. You can burn a Gutlord down. It is T5. It's 32 wounds. You have to commit. You have to, because if you don't, or you falter and he goes kill, double, kill, move, then you're in a really bad playing off the back foot. You gave them tempo. He's completely controlling the space you're moving in. Kill it. Commit to it. The tyrant's a little bit harder because it's 42 wounds, but hey, just roll some sixes. Don't be a coward.
I mean, I would also argue though more than just like if you can't commit, spread out, right? There's like
Yeah.
flames of like what's that shit?
Yeah.
Flamethrower spread out. Sure, if that tyrant's using a dice ability to move and attack one model, make sure you're not within 2 inches of another model if possible, right?
Yep.
Right.
If he's going to start next to somebody and kills it, yeah, make him move someplace that's going to be difficult or out of the way for him to have an advantage. And
Try to make them inefficient.
yeah, just make them inefficient by forcing that action to move, right?
Right.
Besides the ability, the model has 2 actions, maybe goes up to 3 with the ability. You spread out enough, at least you're going to mitigate how much damage he could do a turn. Not all of it, but at least you get waste one of those activations where you can.
Right.
Pete, you use the Crusher all the time too, right? For the ally, you pull that Crusher model in.
I do. Yeah, honorable mention to the Crusher. But something to keep in mind, especially with ogres, is you can't approach them like typical Titan pieces. Because like say like a Fomoroid Crusher. Okay, well if I'm rolling Hexbane's Hunters, for example, right? The dog runs up and jams up the Fomoroid. I'm like, well, have fun with my 55-point model, right? An ogre doesn't care about that because the ogre crushes the dog and then goes double, might makes right. I still have 2 actions. So
Pete, it's really telling how you chose a dog to get crushed in this analogy. So.
How'd that feel, Rob?
I loved it.
But that's something you got to keep in mind because you can't approach them the same way you would other big pieces because they have ways around it. I like Kyle's point. If you spread out, you're hunting Noblars because if you're taking away their action economy, you're taking away their ability to go, I'm going to wait to the end of the round and then I'm going to smack you with my ogres, right? You take that option away from them. So like I said, it's often a race when you play against ogres because it's like, can I remove all the cheap pieces off the board? And then I can deal with the 1 or 2, possibly 3, usually 2 problems on the board.
It's such a crazy thing to think about. Like, all right, all you have to do, if you want to keep pace with ogres, you have to kill 6 wound models as they mow through your 20, 15, 25 wound models at the same speed. Like, it's just such a, and again, the reason why I like playing them in Smashy Warbands is because for me, my favorite part of the game, I like to roll dice. I like to roll those attack dice, right? And they just do it so well. There's so much fun.
I mean, this is kind of like one of those models in one of those lists where I kind of like compare it to Caradron in one sense. They can completely spike a game after turn 1 or turn 2. You get in there, get a lucky kill, use your double, get a second lucky kill, game's over, right? But at the same time, they could go and do that and just happen to roll a whole bunch of ones, and it's game over in the other direction, right? Like you have a lot of fun balance games, but you also just have an increased chance of a game just spiking in either direction.
You're dice dependent. You're massively dice dependent. If you do not roll well, you're not going to do well. So
yeah, the key is to just have a dice that are 6-sided with all 6s, and you just don't worry about it at that point.
Right? I mean, mine are all 1s because I'm number 1, so it's fine.
The joke's on you. I'm always countered. Yeah, go on next. Pick it up.
Hit 'em. Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
Who we got?
Who's up? Actually, before we get into them, just thinking about orcs. The other thing, depending on who is signed up for the event, there is either a 100% chance or a 0% chance that you end up seeing the other greenskins, the Savage Aurochs. If Justin is playing from tabletop and beyond, they will be in the field. If he is not, they probably won't be. Just a note.
And for what we're about there, we're going to probably speed through these guys because they're really simple. There's really nothing.
There's
too
really
crazy.
one ability to talk about,
Yeah, they do everything that the other big guys are doing, right? And then they got you messing.
They don't have the kill on a double, make a move activation, but they do have everyone in this warband, including Bone Splitters as well, has a charge on a double. So like they cheat out. That 3-inch movement is really 6. So like they really just cheat into it. But like Ardboy Boss is a great. Pete and I have preferred him. He has bespoke leader stats on 135 points with a charge.
Such a blender.
such a blender. 4-5-2-5.
Pure
Yeah,
beef.
my boys packing some heat, and then you got Mega Boss. Mega Boss is just a classic. Now that we have the clawback, it's a little bit different. But if like if you're in Iron Jaws, there's no reason to not take a Mega Boss. It's 225 for a Titan model. Brute Boss is really the king of all of this because on a triple, he says anything you have with 14 wounds or under total just doesn't count. So they play that's a really cool on a triple, right? That's a really cool Soul Blight Warband. You got 6 guys on there. Well, they don't count. I have the point now. It's mine. So they even out their advantages of elite to horde, and they're really a key success. Again, they can be allied into any of this. So you can see them in Cruel Boys. And they, 3-6, 3-6, 3-5, 30. That's not a bad profile for 190 points. And you're basically spending it to say, like, later in the round, it's you messing. And guess what? If we don't have to you messing and we have control, we're just charging into you and crumping you for some good damage. Not bad.
And thing too to kind of push up that damage output too for that double. If it's 20 wound model or higher,
15 wound model or higher. So the opposite end of you messing is duff up the big thing. So those Stormcast, those FOMO crushers, a double gives it, I think, an extra attack and extra strength, I believe.
I think so.
And that's so now you're going up to 4-7. That's wild.
Cool.
Right. Glad we're playing fair. And then you have the chaff. The chaff is just 80 point, 3-4, 15. The other variant I like running is 3-5. The one with shields, 3-5.
I like the shields.
Yeah. There's really no bad pick except for the double choppas. You either take the big two-handers or you take the shields. Sorry to overspeak you guys on this one. This one's just we just go. This one is
it's simple. Like the weaknesses are obvious, right?
It's
like
beautiful.
Move 3. Right, that move 3 is going to be 3 unless you're spamming doubles to get that extra charge off, right? So
they have
Elite Warband, and Wog as well to increase move, but the point goes and remains they're going to be dice dependent to move, right? So you're going to have an Elite Warband, moves very slow, and it's going to be very, very dice dependent to actually move to get to where they need to go. So if you have any way to just move faster, stay out of their range, outnumber them, force them to come to you, you get to swarm them after they're done. But I really expect to see that Brute Boss as an ally, just because Umessin is so strong going into his mission pack with that many potential objective missions, mixed with the fact that, you just can kick ass.
Yeah.
That's it, man. That's straight up. They're just simple. You don't have to think too much. They got a couple nuances to them, but like
they got new models too, which is another one where probably seeing them because those new models are out too. So they're pretty.
Yeah, chef's kiss on that one. Next them.
Well, let's see.
Yeah,
I know most of this we pretty much covered, I think, right? Like, so we talked about Hrothgorn. Rob, you got that the Cruel Boys Hrothgorn combo where you're using those reactions to plug just that 4-8 damage all over the place.
Yeah, there's a couple of podcasts where you talk about that too. So if anyone's interested, I'm not sure who you do that podcast with, but you can check that video out.
God, he wouldn't shut up about it. He's Hrothgorn.
Dude, Hrothgorn is really just he was a solid gem found out, and being able to just fire over Cruel Boys. I think he only belongs in Cruel Boys. You might see him. There's a good chance you're gonna see him. If not from me, from somebody else. The only thing keeping him from being spammed more is availability is hard to find, so he gets really expensive quickly. And it's just cheap chaff he comes with. Quiv feeds the triple to make him fire, and then you have all the other black powder.
Black powder's Buccaneers.
It's just really just good cheap chaff. But Peter, my man over here, runs a lot of Torka. We both run Shank together. And did you run Manic in November?
Yep, I did. Because that was feed off. I actually brought all of them other than the Hobgoblin, because I even got Gicket in the mix, because everybody gets about Gicket, but that reaction, that Cruel Boys reaction, still comes
so
into play.
good. So it's just so good.
Yeah,
because you get nets and the reaction.
Yeah,
such a good combination.
Plus a 2-up net. 2-up net.
Yeah, the second best net in the game.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the net factions you're going to see is going to be if you Chaos. If you see someone bring the true blood, right? Otherwise, the most nets you're going to see are from destruction. It's one of the reasons that they're popular. One of the reasons that they're like super successful in what they do. But I also
Some
wouldn't be
of the other
surprised to
ones that are
see
hidden too. They have
Tyrant.
like Spire Tyrants for sure.
Spire Tyrants
Soul Knights.
the
unmade.
Spire Tyrants.
Yep.
So, but like that's point in case, it's like chaos and destruction. Like
Right.
it's much harder to get a net out of order. Like if you have Elthane, you can do it with. You can try to
You can
squeeze
bring
it out
Sylvaneth too.
if you want to bring Sylvaneth, right?
Yep. But you have to play Sylvaneth to get it, I
In
think.
death, you'd have to
Right.
bring Nighthaunt, right? It's very, very
Mhm.
limited in the other Grand Alliances. I wouldn't be surprised though when it comes down to destruction to probably see at least one Monster Hunters, especially partnered with
sure.
like Hrothgorn, just the way the reaction works, like with the net. It's a very gambly style of gameplay, considering it's got to be a 5-up to do that. But I mean, there's people have been talking about just spamming those little, I don't know, the 40 or 60 point egg carriers, and just every time you move, you have a chance of getting netted. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised
do
someone
get
trying to bring
damage,
something
too.
like that in there.
Guaranteed passive damage every time you're moving around them. It's just
Yeah,
solid.
it's
Tax them. It's called you just tax them.
Yeah.
yeah. I moved over deadly terrain, and then that procced for 4 damage. And I was just dealt for like 10 damage just because I moved 3 inches. It was
I'm having fun
pretty
playing
ugly.
Warcry.
Oh yeah. All I did was move, and I hurt myself. So just
Movement simulator, my favorite.
I think we'll probably see some Gorgers too. If nothing else, the clawback just because it's got the charge ability. But I guess it's a 5 model warband. If you need to paint something in a hurry, guess what? Gorgers is a great option. Obviously, yeah, they're well documented for what their weaknesses are. But yeah, I think the clawback is something that we'll probably see in some of these destruction lists. It's one of the it's the carrot in the soup, right? You got all your different root vegetables and all that kind of your aromatics. It's definitely one of the core pieces of the stock at this point. So, wouldn't be surprised to see them popping up either.
Yeah. Dang. Did we just go through it all?
I think
that's all the factions. Yeah.
Oh my!
I think that's everything. Look at that.
That's
all right.
impressive.
Well, who's ready to go to Adepticon?
Well,
I only got about 36 list ideas. Tomorrow will probably be about 37 after I eliminate 5. So, yeah, I'm almost ready.
35 of them are going to be absolute diarrhea. It's all right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's normal though. I play Soul Blight, so
you're like, how many variations on named zombies and skeletons can I have before I throw up on my own lap?
You know what this list needs? Velmorn. This
Velmorn.
list
This
Velmorn.
You know, it's really good if I cheat out everything. Yeah, that's a. You know what? It's a good prefacing point here too. We got through everything. This is gonna be one of our longer episodes. We're at over 2 hours now, right? Like,
hey, thanks for sticking around or skipping to this part.
Right. Most likely not gonna have time. If anybody wants to be a hero and put timestamps in the comments, go for it. But I think we discovered, like, we did it. This is what you're probably gonna see. There's gonna be odds and evens. We could talk about
Surprise us.
Surprise us. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us what you're taking. Tell us what you think is going to be a sneaky one coming up. Let us know. We covered the main big guys. We covered all the soups. Just let us know. And you know what, guys? It looks like it's time for us to reconvene in our little lives. This is just a taste of our content. So you guys got to be a hero, not a chaff. Hit like, subscribe, turn on the notifications so you can tune into the second episode on the deep dive of Adepticon, Prep-ticon.
What should we talk about in that one, Rob?
I think we're going to talk about mission packs and deployments for Adepticon. I think one of the biggest things people want to play, especially new players and veteran players like, is to talk about deployments and how we do it, how we decide on it, and pretty much that's what we're going to dive into. I think that's a lot of time to talk about that. So, to everyone, have a good night. Rob signing off.
Kyle signing off.
I guess this is also Mike signing off.
And I guess I'll stay here. All right.
That's the first time Peter didn't freeze.
I didn't freeze at the end.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
2 hours
sense.
and 11 minutes for you to not freeze on your Pennsylvania camera. Sick.
Good stuff.
All right, guys.
Have a good night, guys.
Next time, okay?